Welcome, everyone. My name is Uche and Uche once more. Um, I'd like to welcome everyone to today's session of Reimagine Uguta, um, uh, which is a conversation. This is a community development conversation by Uguta indigenes and their friends. We since last week, Saturday, Sunday, we've been discussing community development, especially citizen-led community development. Our goal with this conversation is to harmonize all the different citizen-led interventions and hopefully be able to create a centralized vision that allows the interventions that our people have been making to make it impactful. We've had a very enlightening sessions. I'd like to just repeat the ground rules again for today. We're going to have we're expecting to have the former deputy governor join us, and we already have Ubagu, Dr. Ernest Rapa on here. We're also expecting a representative of the Ezigwe of Uguta, who hopefully should be joining us in a few minutes, and would hopefully bring us the goodwill from the Ezigwe's palace. I would like to just reiterate that this is supposed to be an engaging conversation, and it is also supposed to be an interactive conversation. We are going to have distinguished people from across Nigeria actually speak to us today and make presentations as well. We would have the opportunity to also have distinguished Uguta sons and daughters analyze those presentations and hopefully help us have some actionable points from those presentations. But we would also like as many people in the audience to contribute in the conversation. And like has been the tradition since the session started, we would want you to use the Q&A feature on Zoom to ask questions if you have one. If you would like to make a live presentation, or if you want to ask your question or make your contribution in person, we would just use the raise hand feature and raise your hand, and we would let you come in and make your contribution. But please, it is important for us to understand that because we have to keep this place safe from and make it easy for everybody to contribute, it's important that we are very civil in our choice of words. We do not allow any attack, personalized attack on anybody. We would not allow the use of foul language, and we would request that you kindly not use any of those. This would be like a standing warning, because once that happens, we would not inform you. We will take you off the meeting so that we don't desecrate the place. So let's try and be civil in our conversation today. Thankfully, we've not had any incident of that in all of the sessions, and today is not going to be, I believe that today is not going to be an exception. So thank you very much for joining today. I would like to just play a few video for us to start before I invite Wagu, Dr. Ernest Napa, to make some remarks. I would like to play just two videos. So if you would just indulge us. The first video will be just 1 minute. Just give me 1 minute. Okay. Okay, so
About Uguta. Uguta, latitude 5 degrees 42 minutes 37.53 seconds north, longitude 6 degrees 48 minutes 33.7 minutes east, is a community on the east bank of Uguta Lake in Imo State, southeastern Nigeria. It is the administrative seat for Uguta LGA. Uguta was one of the first territories used by the British to advance into the Igbo hinterland. As of 2012, Uguta's population was estimated at 20,096. Early interactions and exposure to the colonial authority agents, having acted as a gateway to them, affected Uguta's metropolis in a positive way. The community's very well planned and developed layout stands her out from other neighboring communities within the southeast. Uguta is majorly an agrarian and fishing community. Her people are traditionally hospitable and glamorous in their celebrations. Uguta cuisines are majorly fish and yam based. There are two main festivals in Uguta, namely the Owu and the Omerife festivals. Contextually, Owu is an institution, a festival, and a masquerade all rolled into one, while the Omerife, also called Ogene and split into two, Ogene Oma and Ogene Nkirika, is a celebration of New Yam Festival. Uguta's economy. Uguta is blessed with high-yielding oil and gas fields, making her a host to major international oil corporations including Ajit, Shell, and Chevron. But experts agree Uguta's untapped tourism potential, as well as her rich cultural heritage, will yield far bigger economic values. The Uguta Blue Lake is a marvelous tourist attraction, especially at the confluence where the waters of the lake and the Urashi River meet, but their respective colors of blue and brown refuse to mix. There are several three-star motels and hotels, a tourist resort with private and public beach, water sports amenities, a 9 and an 18-hole golf course. Notable famous people of Uguta heritage include Justice Chukwudifu Oguta, eminent jurist and justice of the Supreme Court, Nigeria famous for several landmark rulings, and later the Oguta panel of inquiry. Senior Francis Otho Nzeribe, second to fourth Republic politician and former senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Flora Ngapa, award-winning novelist and author, highly regarded and revered as the mother of modern Africa literature. His Excellency, Right Honorable Alphonsus Gerald Irona, immediate past Deputy Governor of Imo State. Ada Priscilla Nzirimo, first female medical doctor of Igbo extraction.
When I think of Uguta, the first thing that comes to mind is Uguta Lake. And honestly, that's a beautiful destination. A lot can be done around there. Then the second thing that comes to mind is the food. I like the food, Uguta. And I like the people, they're very hospitable. So I really think that so much can be done about Uguta. And when we talk about destination in Imo State, for me, Uguta will come tops, but so much needs to be done to turn Uguta Lake into a real destination. Domestic tourism, I think Uguta fits very much into it, and I really do look forward to visiting Uguta very soon.
Hello, my name is Emeka Okoye. I'm an engineer by profession. I've been coming to Ugutah for a long time. I believe the first time I was in Ugutah was 1992. And when I got to Ugutah for the first time, I was impressed by the natural environment I found. And I had believed as at the time that over time, people will see the beauty and actually work to develop it. But unfortunately, that has not been the case. And the only thing in the intervening years, I was in Uguta last year.
All right. Okay, sorry. I think you didn't hear the last of that. Thank you. Sorry, the network intervened. So, but I mean, today we're here to just discuss the economy of Uguta, and so every conversation we'll be having today is about how do we um, as citizens and friends of Uguta help realize this potential that everybody keeps talking about. What are those potentials? What should we be focusing on? What are the frameworks that can help us achieve this potential that everybody that is famous, that everybody talks about? This is what today's session is about. And I would like to quickly just welcome, I don't know if you're ready, sir. I'm going to just read a brief profile, his brief profile, and introduce him to give us a remark. By the way, today's session is at the instance of the League of Uguta Professionals. They've been at they are the ones making this possible, but with the support of several other organizations, including Uguta National Association USA, Uguta UK and Ireland, and several other companies that have supported us to make this happen. I'm going to invite Dr. Ernest Ngapa to who is the convener of LOOP, who is the convener of the League of Uguta Professionals, to give us his opening remark before we continue this session. So just permit me to read his profile very, very quickly. Dr. Ernest Obuagu, Dr. Ernest Ngapa is a civil engineer with over 30 years experience. He is the pioneer executive secretary of the Nigerian Content Development and Monitoring Board and the convener of League of Uguta Professionals. He was appointed Nigerian Content Coordinator at NMPC in 2005, rose to become the Group General Manager, Nigerian Content Division, NMPC in 2010. You're welcome, sir, for your opening remark. Your video is not on, sir. Okay. All right, so it will look like, okay, great. All right, sir, go on.
Uche, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Can you hear me? Okay.
We can hear you, sir.
Good evening, Ndibani. Today is the third session that we're having. I'm physically in Uguta today. Uguta is full to the brim, and there's a lot of activities in Uguta today, weddings or marriages and a few burials. So I anticipate that many of the people who would want to be here are attending those ceremonies, but I believe that they'll keep joining us. Actually, part of the objectives for convening this session, to start thinking deeper and prioritizing issues that concern our community. It is fashionable to challenge government and to say government is doing nothing, putting blames on community development. But historically, Uguta has done a lot of self-help. Most of what we have in Uguta efforts of its citizens, and there is nothing wrong with citizens driving their development and stimulating their youths and encouraging participation. In that way also, you can force the hand of government to join in those things. We believe that governments can always do better. Essentially, the economy of Uguta is what we want to discuss today. And the economy has to be other factors. It has to the private sector, the public sector, both organized and unorganized private sector. So we need to speak to each other. I'm happy that Uche has done a great job in bringing out modern communication tools and a style that encourages participation across board. Let us support this effort. Let us participate. Let's have an open mind and let us listen to the messages coming from the various speakers and presenters. We will listen, we will participate, we will answer questions where questions are directed at us. And please let all our experienced technocrats, politicians, cultural gurus, and knowledgeable friends that we have invited to this session help us to bring Uguta up to the standards that we had inherited from our parents. Let us sort out a place where our children will be very proud to participate in its development. Let us run a race that will enable us hand over the baton of leadership to the young and more knowledgeable ones that are coming behind us. If we do not run the race to drop before we get to our finish point, we are not doing justice to the legacy that our parents have with Uguta, friends and families associated with Uguta, both at home and abroad. Let us take this very seriously. I assure you, this series will not be the end. We will continue to forge ahead and we will grow in numbers. And I want to welcome my good friend, Chinenye. I know that we are going to be ready to see data, statistics, and linkages with cause-effect relationships. And I wish everybody very, very interesting participation. We'll hold up, but so far, so good. Thank you. Enjoy the session. Uche, I'm done, so you can take it from there.
Okay, hi. Okay, thank you very much. Well, Gwendes, thank you for the opening remarks. Sorry, the networks are a bit funny. All the networks here are a bit funny today. I'm aware that the Ezigwe, we have a representative of the Ezigwe in the house. I'm not sure. I've been trying to reconfirm that. But Bennett, if you can hear me, please can you confirm that Organa is available and ready to give a remark before we proceed? Please, Bennett, can you confirm that Organa is ready to give a remark? Okay, so while that is going on, we're just going to move forward. Um, we're just going to move forward while we wait for that confirmation. So I'd like to just introduce, I'd just like to introduce Professor Ifeanyi Uzoka to do his opening remark. Incidentally, he's also going to be moderating the panel session later today. So if you don't mind, permit me to introduce Professor Ifeanyi Uzoka. Professor Ifeanyi Uzoka is a financial economist and chartered professional accountant residing in Canada with extensive industry and academic experience and academic and work experience in different industries across 3 continents. He worked as an investment banker in Nigeria, helping to manage the initial public offerings of several corporate clients. In Europe, he worked with Shertama NV in logistics. At Procter & Gamble Canada, he managed several brands, including Febreze. He was also an analyst with TD Bank Canada in the Performance Management and Analysis Division. Ladies and gentlemen, please let's make welcome Professor Ifeanyi Uzoka.
Ndibane, good morning. Good morning from Canada. And all our friends, we are so grateful to have you. Good morning, also from Canada. It's a pleasure to be speaking with us. And it's a great pleasure to have all of you here coming, your willingness to help us as a town to move forward, to rebuild our economy and make our economy better than we met it, better than our grandparents handed it over to us. So to all our friends, thank you very much. To all the Uguta sons and daughters, I'm so grateful that you are participating. It's a work that we need to do. We have a pattern that our grandparents have bequeathed on us. And it is our responsibility not just to use that pattern, but to enhance it, to make sure that the people coming behind us, that they will meet a better Uguta. Ndibani, there is no success without a successor. We just need to understand that. No matter how successful we are today, if the coming generations cannot do better than us, we failed. We didn't succeed. So this is an opportunity for us to provide that roadmap for our people, for our younger ones that are coming. It's a duty that we need to perform. And we can do that by coming together, what I call distributed leadership. You know what you can do. Go ahead and do it for Uguta. You have a good idea that will make the town to progress, bring it. And what we are talking today is very important. Economics of the town. Economics is the fundamentals of everything. Politics is based on economics. If there is no economics, there will not be any politics. Human life revolves around economics. No matter what we do, if the economy of Uguta is not strong, we are just building a castle in the air. So that is why the discussions we have today is very important. We'll be talking about building a resilient economy. And Ndibani, we have had that economy before. We lost it. Just to give you an example, after the war devastated eastern Nigeria. Uguta was one of the first towns to recover from the war. That made the Anglican Church in 1970. They called Uguta their Capernaum. They moved their synod to Uguta because Owerri was there, Owerri was the capital, but they couldn't hold it there. Owerri was the headquarters, they couldn't hold it there. Uguta has recovered much faster than the other cities around, probably except for Onitsha. So we need to rebuild what we receive from our parents. And those are some of the things we are going to talk about today. We are in a digital economy. Rebuilding the economy might not mean going back to what happened 50 years ago. We are in a digital economy. The companies that are ruling the world, they are the ones that are trading on knowledge. It's not the companies that are trading on merchandise that are ruling the world. The Googles, what's the name? Tesla. Tesla market valuation today is higher than the market valuation of all the 7 Japanese automakers. But Tesla does not produce a tenth of what they produce. Yet they have the highest market valuation. Why? Because it's a knowledge-based firm. So we have a lot in our plate. We have a lot to talk about. And here we are going to talk about culture. We are a people that have a very rich culture. How are we going to leverage our culture into this 21st century economy? We cannot just be all growth, and then we relegate the rich culture that we inherited. So we will talk about that today, see how we can leverage it to move our economy forward. We have a beautiful natural environment. In fact, I always say that Uguta is the most beautiful hometown in Nigeria. When I come to Nigeria, I'm not in Nigeria until I get to Uguta. No matter where I am, Lagos, Port Harcourt, until I get to Uguta, I have not yet arrived in Nigeria. We have the most beautiful hometown. Our lake, we have a lot going for us. How do we harness them? People have tried to harness them for us before. Nitel used to have a Nitel championship, golf championship at Uguta when David Mark was what's the name? The Minister of Communication. They used to have a boat race in Uguta I think it was sponsored by 33 Breweries then. A lot of things that we can do to build a strong and vibrant economy in Uguta. We are the powerhouse of Imo State in terms of natural resources. We supply over 80% of about 80% of the petroleum in Imo State. Ohaji today has a refinery. We don't have a refinery. How are we going to leverage this petroleum industry into the digital economy? So I welcome all of you to this interesting discussion today. We have a lot to talk about, and our presenters, they are going to make it as practical as possible for us so that we can have implementable takeaways. And in Dibani, above everything, we need to work together. No matter what we say here, if we leave them here, nothing is going to happen. We need to move forward, get the takeaways, and come together and implement it in a way that will profit the most Uguta people. It should not be, oh, ordinary mama, ordinary Uguta mama. If it is well for me, it is well for Uguta. It shouldn't be like that. It should be the reverse. If it is well for Uguta, it will be well for all of us. Thank you very much for coming. And we are looking forward to all the things you are going to say to us. Be assured we will take things away from there and implement it and make Uguta a better place for us and for our children. Thank you very much. God bless you all.
Thank you very much, Prof. Very quickly, I'll just go straight to the, the, the very next person to speak. Please, then just let me know when Organa, the representative of Ezigwe is around, so we can pause and take his message. But otherwise, we're proceeding with the plan the way it is right now. So our next speaker is Dr. Felix Okwosha. He is a practical solution-oriented leader with interest in community outreach and community engagement.
Volume, please.
He's the vice president. Please, can you hear me? Can everybody hear me?
Very faint.
Okay, great. So, Felix Okwosha is a practical solution-oriented leader with interest in community outreach and community engagement. He is a vice president, operational excellence at Coca-Cola, where he delivers between $50 to $70 million per year in productivity improvement with a balance on effectiveness, efficiency, and engagement. He consults for small to large-scale businesses, helping to improve their productivity, service delivery, quality, cost, safety, and morale. Felix has worked on numerous community projects in America with a focus on empowering young Blacks to be active contributors in building a resilient community for themselves and for their future generations. Welcome to Reimagine Uguta, Felix.
Thank you very much. And can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
All right. Good morning or good day, everyone.
Sorry, Felix, you want to hit the present button?
Hold on 1 minute. I thought it says sharing.
No, just hit presentation so that it will be full screen.
Oh, to present. Okay, got it. Okay. Is it better now? No, not yet. Is it better now?
Yes, it is. It is better now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to talk about the foundations for a resilient community economy. And my focus is not going to be like Professor Ifeanyi said, it's going to be about the future generation, which is why I have this little kid here who is saying, hey, before you all go out and fix Uguta or our world, please fix the whole child together first. So again, I am a practitioner and I try to keep it simple and to the point, and I will do my best to see that I do that. So keywords in what I'm going to be talking about, one is we talk about foundations. The second one is resilient. The other one is community economy. So I try to kind of put them in pictures so they kind of make some sense, right? So we see what a foundation is the very basic thing that we do before we begin to build anything. And so as you can see, I have different interactions. Nothing is one by itself. Things are all interacted. So as we talk about social, environment, and economy, they all are interconnected with each other somehow. So it's either one to the other or all to each other. So when you bring the social, the environment, and the economy together is what we call sustainable. So I think Professor Ifeanyi talked about we used to, we don't anymore. So sustainable is the key word. So hopefully this picture says 1,000 words. So I try to put it together to say, assuming that Uguta was to be a house, what would that house look like? Well, it will be a house that has a foundation, it will have pillars to support, and it will have a roof. So the roof is what I call the vision for Uguta and also the mission for the town as well. And as you can see on the foundation, like Professor Ifeanyi said, you have to have a foundation before you can have it be sustainable. So if you look at the bottom of that foundation, it talks about some of the things that our deputy governor talked about, which is around the traditional institutions and what Dr. Ernest Mwapa talked about the history, and we also heard about broadband, internet, and stuff like that. And then from there, we heard some of what the other speakers talked about in the past. And those are the things that I kind of melded together to kind of build a foundation for what we are trying to do. So if you look at the pillars, there are 5 critical pillars that we have. One is a healthy environment, responsible governance, quality of life, strong economy, a prepared system. So again, the ones that I haven't read cannot happen unless they are compelling and they are uniting. So that means we need people. So if you look in between the pillars, I have some children that are looking through the window asking the question, what are they talking about? Does that include me? So that vision and the mission that we haven't read is what those kids are looking at and saying, what is that? And they are saying, how are we going to build that foundation that includes me as well? So if you're wondering what Felix is going to talk about, I'm talking through the voice. I'm representing these kids and their expression on their faces. So again, yes, we're talking about economy, but we also have to be focused, right? So if you look at what I put here, I said we have to focus on what we call our competitive advantage or advantages that will promote citizenship, profits, social entrepreneurship, and then at the same time, give us the political clout that we need, like our deputy governor talked about. We cannot achieve much if we don't build a community that has political power. So again, we saw tourism showed up, we saw for-profit and social entrepreneurship. So I'm going to use our 2 good examples to show. On the left side, you will see what we have going on in Uguta. And then I'm going to use 2 examples. Dubai and Cancun, Mexico are 2 examples, and how they were able to kind of take their communities to where they are today. Well, they focused on what we call the 5 M's, and that's around the mission. They had members, they had people, they had a medium. I believe someone talked about, I think it was Professor Ozoka that talked about we need to have our face in the social media. We need to have metrics to measure whether we are winning or whether we are losing. And there has to be a compelling message. So all those together will help us to be able to advance our community. And examples from those 2 locations, Dubai and Cancun, they're examples for us. And based on that, there are some critical success factors that other people that have done this identified as being critical. And one of them, the one that consistently shows up, is people, 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 and people. So again, I'm saying that we need to include our citizens, not just the elites, like Professor Ifani talked about, not just the elites, but we need to include our citizens on board with the vision and the mission. Okay, so the 2 examples, this is Dubai, is an example. So if you look, they have a vision, and their vision is, they have a vision they call the Vision 2025, which is they want to be the most visited city in the world. So what is the Oguta vision? How do we build that united, compelling vision together? So some key objectives, how they measure themselves, they have things over here that they measure. So the second one is the city of Cancun, Mexico. Again, as you can see, it started with a plan in 1974. And today they have financial benefits. They are getting about $25 billion a year. So no society can achieve what we are trying to do unless we have this slide that talks about the 5 M's and critical success factors that is around their citizens. So I want to introduce us to a word. We keep talking about change, change, change. I want to talk about the opposite of change. The opposite of change is what we call slow death. So if you look at this little kid on the left-hand side, that kid is dying. That kid has no hope. There's level of hopelessness in this little kid's face. And that's where I'm going to be focusing my attention on the slow death. So slow death, how do you know when there is slow death? You know there is slow death. Yeah. How do you know there is slow death? There are three things that happens that leads to slow death. One is we see something, we know something is not right. Nobody wants to talk about it. That leads us to have what we call trust. Trust gets damaged. And I think Professor Ifani kept talking about trust. It damaged the trust. And then everyone starts fighting for themselves. Oh, I'm going to do this. This is for me, without thinking about the collective gain. What that leads to is a situation that we have on the picture on the left. It leads to people not having energy. It leads to hopelessness. It leads to this little kid crying, saying, what future do I have? Why do I exist? And what part of this community is me? So, Ndibani, I am saying that our future depends on a community-wide plan for deep change, not just change, but deep change. And it has to be with the people of Uguta, and it has to be for the people of Uguta, and it has to be by the people of Uguta as well. So what that means is, I'm not going to go on this slide, but this is a roadmap on how to lead change that I have used in my professional life, and it's worked for me. And I'm not going to dwell on this, but I will say that we don't have to recreate. There are examples out there that we can follow. This is one change model. There's another one that is called ADCA, and there are other change models out there that we could borrow from. But it's all about this. So we started with pictures of kids that looked hopeless. Now we are looking at pictures of kids that have happiness, and they are saying to us, let the conversation begin. They are asking what 3 words that they want us to continue to ask. In everything we do, in the associations that we have representing us, do they have community? They're asking, do they have community? Are they developing us and our city? And is there a union in that organization? So these are key things. And with that, that's the end of my presentation. What questions? That's the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Felix. We would move very quickly to the next keynote, and the next keynote speaker happens to be. I have a lot of bosses, but this is one of my bosses as well. It happens to be my boss, and I'm going to read his profile shortly, and then he would share his screen. Just allow me to start this up. Okay. So permit me to hold on. Just give me 1 minute. Okay. Okay. Please check something. Something is happening. Okay, the next speaker is Mr. Chineye Mbozuku. Mr. Chineye Mbuzuku is the founding managing director of multiple award-winning technology solutions provider, Infographics Nigeria. He has almost 30 years of an eclectic career spanning marketing communication, digital design, change transformation, and software development in private and public sectors. He worked in Microsoft as General Manager, Anglophone West Africa, overseeing 7 country portfolios as a member of the Microsoft EMEA Executive Management Team. China is currently the president of Institute of Software Practitioners of Nigeria, ISPON, and sits on the Leadership Council of Society of Igbo Professionals, a pan-Igbo body of professionals interested in the development of Ala Igbo. Please help me welcome Mr. Chineye Mbuzuku. Mr. Chineye, your video is off and your mic is on.
Thank you, Uche. Thank you, Uche. We're sleep deprived. I think that's, forgive me if we make some mistakes here and there. Day one, and thank you very much for having us. So I think this is one of those things that we are so proud of, honestly, which I don't know where to begin to say thank you for the opportunity to make a presentation. I think there's quite a lot that we have to say, and I'll try to cover it as fast as possible. So first of all, my apologies. I've not been able to attend the earlier sessions, but I'm sure that given the quality of the people, you know, who make up this ancient kingdom of Uguta, there is no doubt in my mind that that you already have most of the answers. So forgive me if I say what has been said before. Accommodate me as a friend of the house and a partner in the development of Uguta as part of Ala Igbo, which has become our passion and the one thing that we feel that we must do and must maintain, especially in the face of the challenges that we currently have. My thanks again to Wagu and other members of Loop for asking us to make this presentation, to join you in helping to craft this vision. His Excellency and all other dignitaries, all protocols observed. I'll try to move a bit quickly and make the most of the time that we have. Essentially, what we are saying, I come from the background, like which I said, of being involved in an organization called the Society of Igbo Professionals. We came together for more or less the same reasons that we are all here gathered here today. A sense that if we are going to create an environment, if our place is going to develop and we're going to create an environment that we can live in, and most importantly, that our children can live in as well, then the professionals really must come to the table, join hands and apply the contents that they have, the experience that they have, the network that they have, and very intentionally design a future for our people and bring it to pass. Oguta mentioned earlier that a lot of finger pointing, blame, and things like that. And we are convinced that we need to go away from that. Instead, have practical conversations, pragmatic conversations around what we as individuals can do, and more importantly, how we can collaborate amongst ourselves to create that future. We cannot stand on our own. It doesn't matter how many big men you have or big women that you have. Ultimately, Igbo people are only big in the context of the community. Our head no men are lying, and we cannot walk away from it. To the extent that we drift away from this community and the sense of our responsibility to our community, that's the extent to which the society itself will be threatened. So essentially, I come to you from SIP with some background, personal background, but Igbo's development must happen. First and foremost, it's critical to understand that everything that we do in SIP has to do with it comes from our core as Igbo people. We are saying that everything that we do, everything may be on the core and makes us stand out everywhere that we're known for excellence. There's nobody who I've never ever seen a situation in any family, no matter the economic circumstances, where they don't aspire to be the best that they can possibly be. We always, as in the diaspora, because we are homegrown, and sometimes when we see these our brothers who have and sisters who have gone abroad and done the things that they've done there, the challenge that we face is whether we can actually meet up. But I know together we can make things happen. SIP started an initiative called Obudoma. And Obudoma is really around what Uguta is trying to do today. And that is really incredible. We just found it absolutely fascinating that the concept that we've been working on is being practicalized, brought to life in its entirety by a community that is asking itself the questions: how can our place be better? And are we going to allow it to happen, grow on its own, or we are going to be intentional about how to create it? So I really congratulate you. I'm very proud to be associated with this event. And our job today is just to explore some of the issues as we see it. First of all, we understand that there's a challenge from where we are today into the 21st century and the 23rd century that are positive, are things that don't happen by accidents. They happen as a result of intentional planning. And that intentional planning sometimes involves what Pablo Picasso has referred to by saying that it's almost, in some people have described as creative destruction. But the way he puts it, I think, is very well, because it requires a lot of courage. Every time you want to create something, you end up sometimes having to destroy certain things. So you need to be very courageous, but you also need to be intentional about what needs to go in order that the tomorrow can become. And making those decisions is a challenge that is, as the Prof had said, is a challenge that covers culture, jumps into economy, lands in the society, and ultimately is expressed in the kind of persons that we actually create in our societies. Some things just have to give way in order for the new to come. Uguta is a lovely, beautiful place that I've been coming to for over 30 years myself, with all great friends in that environment. It's a place that and frankly, please don't quote me outside of here, but it is a place that most of us envy. I'm from Umuahia myself, and I don't want my people to think that I am promoting somewhere else over, but we must recognize the reality. Uguta is endowed. Not only does it have a natural beauty, but also has a certain character of its people, and it has a certain culture that is in place. It's a place that most people gravitate to without even thinking about it. It's a place where we go to relax. It's a place where we go to have friends, where we kind of like have communion with people. And nature and its environment supports it. All those things, however, are nostalgia. Sometimes when we get into a period of nostalgia, it's as though the future is not certain for us, and so we want to go in the past. For us to go to the future, though, we have to create it. And creating it means that we must be intentional. We must make choices, as I have said before. But we can make those choices honoring the past while building forward. Which means that if we ask ourselves the right questions and answer them, we can find our way towards that place where we want to be. And that movement forward is probably defined by three things. And I won't spend too much time on this because some of it has already been dealt with in the presentations that you've heard, so I don't bore you. But fundamentally, we know that we're in a recession. We know that the global economy is going to be in a recession for quite a while. We understand that from the statistics that have been laid out to us, that it's not just a Nigeria thing, it's a global thing. If the world's economic GDP shrinks by minus 3.2%, how much more our environment? In Nigeria, we are heavily hit. We have gone into our second recession, and this is the forecast from one of the leading economic houses that says that we will go to worst case scenario minus 8% in GDP growth. That means disaster. It means galloping inflation. They were projecting at the beginning of the year during the crisis of a forex exchange rate of 415 naira to one. As at yesterday, we had crossed 500. They're talking about unemployment rate of 23%, and now we're going into an even bigger crisis. And for us, this means that we need on the implications because it will be Uguta. So if we go forward quickly into some of the other parameters, you would see that some of the things that have helped our economies has been remittances. Nigeria has always been big around remittances, money that Prof and the rest send back, and we use that to kind of like cover gaps. But with a global inflation, a global recession, we're not going to see that money. That 25 billion that Nigeria was getting in dollars that was coming into the system is going to shrink. So there's less foreign investment coming into our system, and therefore we have to rely on what we have. When we look at the nature of Uguta, Uguta by its physical location abuts the hydrocarbon zones of the south-south. You can see on the image before you all the hydrocarbon related infrastructure that lies around here. And somewhere in the space here, you can see where Uguta is. Clearly, there is an opportunity for an oil economy of some oil economy or oil-related type economy in Uguta. The big question is, hydrocarbon industries in Nigeria have brought little but economic expropriation and environmental degradation, and worst of all, communal unrest in those societies. If we as a people decide we want to look at building a hydrocarbon industry, some kind of an oil-based economy in Uguta, we must be aware that those things that have happened in other locations where oil has become kind of like the backdrop or the backbone of those economies brings with it a lot of misery. How can we and can we even affect it? Uguta also has an inland port. I went looking for data to try and find out what the projections were around the inland port. Of course, I saw this lovely picture, and I've been to Uguta last and went to this port, I think it was about a year ago, and we could see that this is not the picture that we currently have. But when I went to go and check for the data and I looked at the transport maps, official transportation maps, Uguta was not listed, which means that on the federal government's perspective, even though that it was on the record, there is a challenge. And why is there such a challenge? The challenge, of course, comes from the fact that the river requires dredging. If you don't dredge the channel, you cannot get access to it. And if we were to convince the federal government to put Uguta back on the map, as I said before, these are official government documents. You will see that if this has to happen, we have to also understand the nature of having an economy that is based on an active port. It usually brings a lot of young people, it's usually unskilled labor, and there are usually a lot of migrant population, and it creates what we call urban fragility. So the next thing that we want to look at is population. When you look at population and you look at literacy and you try to match the two, you will see that all the areas on this map that is red are actually the places where illiteracy in Nigeria, literacy levels are as low as 10 to 20%. Of course, when we come back to where we're at a very high level of literacy, but we also have a huge population with a lot of unemployment. This population is either going to be an opportunity or it's going to be a bomb. And you can see from the demographics that are available here, that a huge number of those people are sitting in this space of 15 to 64 years. If you break that down even lower, you start to see that here is where the population, this is for Imo State, and of course you can probably translate into Uguta. You start to see that there are large numbers sitting in that space of between 10 years old and 30 or 40 years old, who are active people who should be thinking of what are we doing with ourselves, what can we do with ourselves. If you don't give them an opportunity, they turn inwards and they become a problem to you. When we look at the Fragile Cities Index, for instance, you'll find that, and this is critical for us to understand because this is where the pressures are going to come from. When we plan using Obonoma's statistics, Obonoma's approach, we look for this data and try to get this data to tell us certain things. The Fragile Cities Index tracks 528 cities across Africa, a population of over 250,000. And it says that places like Onitsha, Nnewi, and Owerri fall into the cluster of those growing at 3.9%. The average global urban population growth is 1.84%. These cities are growing at twice that rate. And then there are some cities like Abuja and Port Harcourt that are growing at an even faster rate. This is where Uguta lies. This is Nnewi, this is Onitsha, this is Owerri. The implication of this is that as these cities are expanding, and if we add on the issues of a potential port and oil economy, this place becomes a magnet for the expanding populations coming from these areas, and we need to figure out how do we cope with that. The demographics will change because being equidistant from those areas, you're going to see a huge amount of rural-urban migration. And as that is happening, it creates its own problems and its own challenges. And Uguta, as you are today, imagine a population increase of 50%, largely young people. over a period of the next 10 years, how will the community cope? We believe that there are options as well as there are challenges. But the critical thing is that this is a decision that we have to be intentional about. And then there are options and there are opportunities for us to look at. So what do we need to do? Essentially, we have first of all to take a decision that we want to build a community that was the nostalgia. Remember, I said honoring the past and at the same time building the future. In the past, we had societies and communities where there was sustainable well-being. The cities were clean, the villages were clean, they were kept, there was law and order, there was governance, there was an opportunity to go to school, individuals were supported by the community into education and economic opportunity. There was a sense of well-being in the community. Over the past 20, 30 years, Nigeria has gone in the opposite direction, and Ali Igbo in particular has been hard hit by that. Because as our human capital has migrated out of the southeast, out of Ali Igbo, and gone to the urban areas of Lagos, and most often gone abroad, there has been an imbalance. And the sense of our sustainable well-being has dropped, while on the side of the core infrastructure, this has happened outside of Ali Igbo, and what has meant is a continuous drain of resources. In order to right this ship, in order to rebalance this matter, these are the 5 elements that must be brought into place. That's what we believe. Human capital must be rebuilt. We must implement technology. We have to leverage our natural tilts towards entrepreneurship and innovation, and we must be able to finance this. But most importantly, at the community level and all the way up to the state and the national levels, we need to come back to the days of statesmanship, where things were done for the community and not for the individual. So how do we get there? We focus on this concept, as I've mentioned, of Obudoma, and we believe that every community in Ali Igbo needs to make hard choices. And those choices have to do with what does the community want? But even more importantly, what is it that the community does not want? I've presented certain things to you, and let's see what the options are. So when you come into the infrastructure, which is around the digital economy, you look at the requirement for infrastructure to power the digital economy, and you can see the spread of mobile telephony coverage in Nigeria. If we decompose this to the level of 3G, 2G, 3G, 4G, and the oncoming 5G, you will find that the coverage of Ali Igbo is heavy, but it's heavy on 2.5G and 3G, which is why we have the problems of connectivity across the entire Ali Igbo. When you look further, you look at the telecommunications infrastructure that leads to internet and broadband in Nigeria. Of course, you can see the wires, you can see the fiber that is laid in the ground across most of these areas. And here where we are, you start to see that the density is not there. Given the geographic density, the smallness of this geography, we should have expected that this entire place should have been covered with the kind of fiber that drives and enables a digital economy. The absence of that infrastructure literally means that the talk about the digital economy in Ali Igbo is really just that, talk. Until we resolve these matters, and this is not just a question of right of way, it goes beyond right of way to other elements of infrastructure. Until we resolve these issues, any discussion about digital economy in Ali Igbo is a pie in the sky. So what does this mean for us? We believe that we should look at ICT not necessarily as an industry of its own, but we should look at it as an enabler of other sectors of the economy. And we've given 2 examples, and it was lovely that the earlier prof spoke about Cancun in Mexico. I prefer Puerto Vallarta because I've been there, and it was an absolutely fantastic experience. A little tiny town of 15,000 inhabitants, but that has an international airport and takes flights from everywhere in the world. And receives over 3.7 million tourists every single year, coming into this small area that is no larger than Uguta itself is, and yet it has an annual income of $35 million on tourism alone. How did it get there? How do you go from a sleepy little fishing village to an international tourist destination, generating income of over $35 million per annum? Another example is Santa Barbara. So, another example is Perhaps I hold pause. My apologies. So another example is Santa Barbara, which many of us be familiar with. Santa Barbara is a city in California, which of course we know is one of the richest places in the entire world. But it doesn't really, I'm not really so concerned with the fact that it has a gross metro income of $2.47 billion. What is critical is that Santa Barbara looks like Puerto Vallarta and looks like what Uguta can actually be. And yet it has combined two things, tourism and education, which has in turn created the last bit, which is technology. So with a surfeit of institutions, higher education institutions that have incredible capacity for research, they have become a technology hub in the United States. But the most important thing is that they focused on one thing, which was tourism. The tourism itself created an environment for young people, created an environment that eventually allowed them to invest in educational institutions, and those educational institutions in turn produce the technology that sustains this economy. So where does that take us to? Is there a possibility that Uguta could become like a Santa Barbara? Could it, which combines the best of a Puerto Vallarta with the best of a Silicon Valley, San Francisco, and turning that into equivalent of a Santa Barbara? Well, here is the evidence that is available to us that clusters are possible and clusters do deliver value. Lagos has by force become a cluster, and Lagos in 2019 attracted 95% of $663 million in FDI that came into this environment. It's important for us to understand that the cloud economy that exists, which is anyone who is connected to the internet, most of these elements were not in there before. The invisible informal shadow economy, the educated unemployed, all these groups were not in this cloud economy. But over the past 15 years, Nigeria has more than 20 times increased its capacity for connectivity. And then COVID-19 drove all these people into this space where we now have meetings via Zoom. Everybody now understands the internet and everybody's using tools of the internet. But here is Lagos, one small place, Yaba, largely Yaba alone, $663 million. It is proof that it is possible if we do the right things. So what do we have to do if Uguta is to adopt Santa Barbara as its model? It's important for us to understand how these clusters work. If we want to take advantage of what Lagos has done in terms of Yaba, and we create a similar thing in Uguta, then we must recognize the key factors that make it work. Some are within our control, some are not. The one that is absolutely within our control is this item of education webs, intentionally creating an environment to invest in high quality educational institutions in an environment where young people feel comfortable and safe. Once you set up higher educational institutions of international standard, equip them with research facilities, young people will flock to your environment. The most critical thing that is assumed of these 8 clusters worldwide, Silicon Valley, Boston, Tech City, London, Paris, Israel, Slovakia in Russia, Bangalore, and Beijing, 86% of global innovation activity occurs in 8 clusters. In Nigeria, I've told you 95% of innovation activity and investment happens in Lagos. If we decide that we want to create an environment that will be conducive for the emergence of a cluster, we must understand what works in other places and implement those things in our place. So the key question we have to ask ourselves is, how do we get to deciding a vision for Uguta and thereafter implement it? And the fundamental question is, can Uguta aspire to and become the safest, smartest, happiest place for young people to live, work, and play? I believe it can. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chine. I couldn't have put that better than you've done. When we were preparing preparing this, and someone said to me, Uche, you're in the digital economy space. Why don't you do this presentation? And I said to them that the person who is going to do the presentation is far bigger than I can ever deliver. So this was awesome. So Onyekwe Chiekwe, so we can take it from here. But you mentioned culture in your presentation. And so our very next presentation is going to be by Yvonne Chioma Mbanefo, and she's going to be discussing culture. So please, unfortunately, Chioma is not joining us live, but she has sent in her video already. So just give me 1 minute to read Chioma's. Just give me 1 minute to read Chioma's profile, and we would play Chioma's video. All right, Chioma Mbanefo's career sits at the intersection of digital media, cultural heritage, and education, deploying technology as an active tool to educate people through storytelling. In studying pre-colonial Igbo life, she has developed a deep interest in the relationship between everyday life, individual experiences, power structures, and cultural forms in different communities, as well as ways in which to use them to foster cultural intelligence across societies. Yvonne is quickly gaining a reputation as a cultural consultant in various projects like film, TV, theater production, anthropology, book publishing, and other heritage-related initiatives. She's best known for her work in Igbo studies and advocacy for African languages. Please let's welcome Chioma as she makes her presentation to us through this video. Please do let me know if you can hear the sound. Apologies, I have to restart that again. Apologies, I have to restart that again. Everything okay? Can you hear this? Sorry.
My platform.
I can't hear. Can anyone else hear?
To the Oguta region. Cultural and festival tourism has a huge potential of bringing people from all over the world every year to the Uguta area. And when planned very well, it will have far-reaching effects on both the local economy and will also give small businesses, the government, and also bring
Please forgive me to just let me replay this. Let me just restart this because we had audio issues from the beginning. I didn't know.
Greetings. I'm Yvonne Chioma Mbanefo, co-founder of the annual International Igbo Conference, which is in collaboration with SOAS University of London. I would like to thank the organizers of Reimagine Uguta, especially Uche Aniche, for pulling off such a wonderful event and for giving me an opportunity to share my thoughts on this platform. My talk is going to explore culture as a tool for economic development. And I'm going to base most of my talk on how to use the two main festivals in Uguta to bring short and long-term economic development to the Uguta region. Cultural and festival tourism has a huge potential of bringing people from all over the world every year to the Uguta area. And when planned very well, it will have far-reaching effects on both the local economy and will also give small businesses, the government, and also bring a lot of employment to the local area. So the government has options to make money, small businesses, and also businesses from outside the Uguta area. But for the purposes of this talk, we're going to talk about how it will benefit Uguta people, the local Uguta people, whilst selling the culture and the heritage and the history to the outside world. So there can be a pitching process for businesses, small businesses, both local and international, national businesses, to pitch to the organizers of these festivals to show what they will bring to the table. And this, generates an income because those businesses will pay to pitch. And at the same time, it will also create an avenue to streamline the, the features or the opportunities that these businesses will bring to the festival. And obviously with a preference to local businesses. Sponsorships is also a way to drive growth in the area during these festivals. Apart from the obvious sponsoring the actual festival, it can also get sponsors to build infrastructure around Uguta area to facilitate the festival, and which will also benefit the local area. This could come in the form of roads or other infrastructure, or even tourists will be visiting, and things like hotels. So sponsorship doesn't necessarily have to be just for the festival itself. The sponsorship can also be driven around, sort of healthcare, safety equipment for, water transport and, land transport. You can get sponsorship for different types of things, both for short-term and long-term benefit of the local area. So charity is another big one, and this helps sort of give back to the host community and also highlight what's going on in the area. And with this charity could be part of some schemes to help local farmers, local fishermen. I was seeing a news feature about a lot of the land farmers use being submerged in water. So charity initiatives can be set up to sort all these things. But going back to the cultural aspects that can encourage people to come, you talk about the food. There can be an array of foods for people to try, both foods being eaten now and foods eaten in ancient Uguta history. Also, music. Music is a big one. There can be many music festivals within the two festivals, and also tours. Well put together guided tours, exhibits, and museums to teach people about the local culture. There's so much in that can be taught and displayed and shown to people. Uguta has a lot. Igbo cosmology is very becoming very interesting to a lot of people around the world. So there can be, talks and tours about the Obuide, the water goddess, and other things in Igbo cosmology around the Uguta area. The obvious ones, the masquerades, why things are done certain ways, the dances. Age grades are a big one. There's so many age grades in Uguta, and these age grades can put specific performances, and also invite Uguta people who live in the diaspora to come back and join age grades. There are massive communities of Uguta people outside Nigeria, like in South Africa, in the Americas, in Europe, in Asia, different places. So these specific communities, in encouraging people of Uguta descent who live outside of Nigeria and outside of Uguta to come back and experience and join these age grades, and also attend the festival, solidify their identity, their sense of being, and also culture. And this in turn, as you're attracting people from Uguta or people of Uguta descent who live outside, you're also attracting people who are not from Uguta but who are interested in the culture, and that drives the population of festival and cultural tourists coming down to Uguta. So to make it more interesting for younger people to attend this festival and to make to come back year after year for these events. You can within the actually employ technology, which the festival tourists can just scan their phones at certain places, and then what happened at specific places. It could be places that have a connection of what specific things. They could just scan an item in a museum, and it tells them everything they want to know about that item. So technology can also be used in a very positive way to make it more quote unquote cool for your people. So in conclusion, there are so many things used to drive use culture to drive economic tourism. You have tourists to come down to Uguta. You have the
All right, thank you, thank you. So the very next person, the very next speaker is going to be Peace Anyam Osigwe. Just permit me to read her profile. Just permit me to read her profile for us. All right, so Peace Anyamo Siwe, MFR, is a Nigerian filmmaker and entertainment executive. She is the founder of globally acclaimed film ceremony, African Movie Academy Movie Producers. The Guardian documents that she pioneered the screening of Nollywood films at international film festivals. She directed the first music video of hip-hop sensation P-Square. In 2012, she was bestowed a member of the Federal Republic by the Nigerian government for her contribution to the entertainment industry. Peace is a third fellow. Please, let's welcome Peace Anyam Osigwe.
Hello.
Good evening. Please, you will put on your video, please.
I am trying. My network has just been crazy where I am, but I am trying to definitely put on the video at the moment. Hopefully, it should come on any minute now. Basically, hi.
Would you want us to share your?
Well, for me, it was just a guide to what I wanted to talk about. So I don't know, it might help some people to get an idea of the potentials of Uguta as far as I see it in terms of the tourism. Because, I mean, I've been to Uguta a couple of times, being that it's a place where there's a lot of writers from, and it's the home of Charlie Boy. So for us, it's an interesting place. Now, if we understand what we have as Igbos, we always run away from one of our biggest potentials. The Yorubas have, in a way, been able to make one of their biggest festivals around the Ocean Water Goddess. And Uguta actually has one of the best water goddesses, that's the Ogwide. And of course, there's no ceremony that brings a lot of people to Uguta for that particular event, and to say to ourselves, oh, this is really something that can drive a lot of visitors to Uguta. I've listened to a lot of the speakers earlier and looking at the potentials of what we can do as a people, like what Chineze put up, which is how to make Obodanye Obodoma. And in trying to make Obodanye Obodoma, the first thing that we have to ask ourselves is that, are we ready as Igbo to look homewards and inwards first and foremost, and begin the journey home? Because there's so much potential at home, but we are building outside more than we are building inside. And this brings me to some of the conversations I have with friends over a period of time when it comes to some of the biggest events we have around the country, which are actually organized and have been run by people of Igbo origin across Nigeria. Now, when you look at the historical journey of Uguta as a place, you look at the location as a place, you find yourself thinking of all the places, like in my peculiarity, of all the places I've had to go to for film festivals or music festivals or any kind of cultural festival. So comes to my mind quickly around Africa is Zanzibar, or comes to my mind is Benin Republic in January when they have the Voodoo Festival, I think from the 10th of January every year. They talk about their culture and they celebrate Voodooism, and they have a hell of a lot of tourists attend those ceremonies. And then you have to ask yourself, why are we avoiding having those things? Why are we avoiding celebrating and making as big as we can our traditional Mound festivals? Why are we not branding Uguta as a destination? And that's where we have to first start from. How do we go about branding Uguta? What is, I mean, the lake, everything is there. So let's even start with something like Experience Uguta. Just you have like people going to Calabar or Budu. Why don't we start to build Experience Uguta with what we already have? We have the lake there already. There are times for the New Yam Festival. We can pick 3-4 periods of the year where we will take people to Uguta for these ceremonies. And of course, by doing that, we're also creating jobs by teaching people how to take people around, show them the sites. Everything begins to engineer. But what you never fail to understand is that most tourists want to go to unique spaces. And Ogide is one of the unique spaces that you're going to have to sell Uguta for the international community. For all the people from Brazil, Haiti, Chile, Colombia, even Benin Republic, that all worship the water goddess. And I mean, these are people, there are millions, there are millions in Brazil. I know that for Oshun, Water Oshogbo Festival, sometimes the lady who does the travel journey every year brings in as many as 200 to 300 Americans. And this is just one travel agent I know about. And I know that there's so many that come from different places across Africa, come from Brazil for that particular festival. Yet, I have actually researched it to find out that it's actually almost the same thing that they are going to Oshu Oshogbo for that you have with Oguide in Uguta. And then we have a lake that is even totally different with the Orashi River and the blue lake. So the brown and the blue, which should bring more people into that community for us. There's so much potential in what we call traditional African religion tourism on that aspect. It is controversial, but unfortunately, it's also a money spinner for the community. That is something Uguta already has. It's a natural gift to them. It is not that we're going to look for something. It is something we're already going to build around it. So I think that we should look at what we have. We should look at those celebrations of our traditional, what do we call it? Our traditional dances, our traditional masquerades, all the things that bring the dollars in, so to speak. The music festivals and film festivals. There was a film festival in Uguta by a young man, and he tried to sustain it for, I think, 3 or 4 years. I know I visited at one of them, but Uguta is actually very strategic for film festivals. It's got the serenity for outdoor showing of films. It's also got a location ability, so we can sell by having a film office within Uguta, whereby we have accommodation for people and people can open up their houses for people to make films. We can actually look at making sure that Uguta becomes one of the key destinations for filmmaking within Nigeria and the community of Nigeria. I think that we need to potentially look at that and start to actively work on it and to sell it. And this doesn't need any government involvement. It just needs the people of Uguta to realize that, look, you have some beautiful locations. The golf course is there. The lake is there. The homes are there. There are fields there. So there's some beautiful old churches also in Uguta that people would love to see and use for certain types of films. How have we marketed these things? How have we been able to sell it to the international community, or even to people in Nigeria, or even to people in other states to come home to Uguta and enjoy their Christmas, to come home to Uguta and just have a relaxing time at the golf course. Doing some research on Uguta for this presentation, some of my friends didn't even know that there was a golf course in Uguta, and yet they come home every year for Christmas to Nigeria and then they go to Abeokuta or somewhere else to go and play golf. They didn't realize that in their locality, within the Imo state as it is, there's a beautiful golf course to go to. So, and again, Uguta has a lot of food, different types of food that they can celebrate. So right by the sea, by the lakes, we could have a food fair, a food court, people.
You're muted, Ma. You can I think you've muted yourself. Can you unmute? Hello, Ma. Can you unmute? I think you may have mistakenly muted yourself.
Nollywood achieved what it achieved today in the industry by its own sheer determination. And I think that Uguta can achieve the same thing if they just put their minds to it and say, okay, let's work together. Let's try as much as possible and build a tourist destination by, first of all, coming together and branding Uguta as a destination. So how do we do that? Is to, first of all, set up a team that will work at the brand Uguta. What are the elements that will go into this brand marketing? What are we trying to sell? Who are we trying to sell it to? And we will begin to talk the talk and walk the walk by advertising and talking to travel agents across the world. Maybe even take some journalists and make them look at Uguta from a tourism point of view, get a special showcase in some of the tourism magazines across the world about Uguta, talk about Oguide, and get people like Professor Shorinka, who've actually met the woman that runs the place, to talk about it so that there'll be some credibility attached to it. I know that there was a film shot in Uguta a few years ago by a young man called Onyeka Nwelwe, and that film has traveled. It was actually even nominated in the AMA. It was fully shot in Uguta as well. So things like that will help. If we can also talk about Flora, I know that there's a biography about her also done by Onyeka. Things that like that help to highlight what Uguta is about. Those things need to be showcased more by the people from Uguta. They can showcase the film. They can get some people, invite some of the ambassadors from some of these countries that have interests in our tourism sites, invite them to Uguta for a weekend. At least I know that we have a couple of good hotels and guest houses in Uguta. Invite them there, let them stay there, let them visit the place. They will be the ones to go out and talk about it. The setting up a festival and sustaining it is a big problem. I think what's his name? The young man who's doing the Lake City Film Festival should be encouraged to sustain it by any means possible. And I think that's really what I would like to say. I would work with any team that you guys put together in trying to draw attention to at least my contacts within the Brazilian community and the Haitian community who would want to visit a place like Uguta because of their understanding of the alternative religions of Nigeria.
Thank you. Sorry. Your Excellency, sir, I think I'm the one trying to mute you. I would signal you to unmute when we want you to make a remark. Thank you, sir. Thank you for joining. Please, I don't know if you've rounded up. Was that your last comment? The offer, was that your last comment, or you were distracted?
I would be willing to put you in contact with some people at the Brazilian embassy and the Haitian community to look at alternative, coming to Uguta just to look at the site of Oguta and be able to talk about it, and then to get more people to come on holidays there. And maybe you can create a festival around that for them to come to, just like you have the Oshogo festival every year.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We'll definitely take you up on that after now. So thank you so much for coming on and for that wonderful presentation. I'm very sure that there will be questions during the Q&A sessions. We have 2 presentations left, and then we're going to have a couple of conversations, and then the floor will be open for people to be able to make contributions and ask questions as well. So please, without wasting time, please permit me to introduce. Sorry, I said 2 presentations. There are 3 presentations, but they're going to be very quick ones. Without wasting time, permit me to just welcome someone that we respect very highly. I'm just going to read out her profile. Just give me 1 minute. Okay. Okay. Just 1 minute. Okay, so Calista, I'm going to be welcoming Madam Calista Azogo. Calista is the current Deputy Managing Director of Nigerian Ajib Oil Company Limited. She is also the General Manager, Human Resources and Organization of the company. She has over 24 years experience in the industry and held other positions in the past, spanning Nigerian content development and finance, etc. She is a fellow of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria, and she's a member of all the numerous professional bodies. She will be helping us discuss oil and gas as the future, oil and gas as a bridge to the future. Welcome, ma.
Thank you very much, Uche. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can. Yes, we can. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you very much. I think first and foremost, I want to thank you and your organization for putting together these activities for our own Uguta Meshi. Thank you also for the opportunity to participate. I want to also give respect and honor to whom they are due. I want to recognize the representative of the Ezigwe of Uguta. I have seen Your Excellency, the former Deputy Governor of Imo State, Obu Ernest Nwapa, and recognize all the other panelists and the participants. For me, I think first and foremost, I want to thank Uche for his resilience, because I wasn't sure I was going to be able to make it, but seeing all the efforts he put in, I felt I really needed to, put additional efforts to make today's engagement. My understanding is that we want to brainstorm on Uguta for the future. How can we build a strong and sustainable Uguta economy? So I just have a very, very brief presentation The idea is for us to, how do you say it? Touch the lion's tail and then get the reaction, the discussions, share the opinions. The aspect of discussion has to do with oil. So the issue is reliance on oil. Where has it taken us? And what will be the way forward for the future? I think that for the past, we could say that perhaps there has been quite some advantages in oil and gas activities in general, but the impact, it's something that I would say is arguable, particularly on our community. So I would rather look at how we can overcome the reliance and build a more sustainable future. So I'm looking at, just a few slides that I couldn't show them. So the first thing I'm saying is that oil is oversaturated in Nigeria, in quote. Everyone is struggling to have a piece of the action. So how can we have enough for all? And then the second citation here is that oil is losing its relevance, and more international laws are stipulating green energy. So can we, as Ugutah Meshi people, be a part of this future? To make it simple, it's often been said for our country, Nigeria, that we need to diversify because oil has not really been a very great blessing for us. Coming home to Uguta, I think that is also what I think we need to do. We need to diversify. And what do I mean by diversification? What I mean is generally to look at aspects that can grow our economy, grow our people, sustain our community independently from oil, and independently, in fact, from maybe external factors. We need to be in control of our future. So I'm looking at the background of this. So what is really the essence of building a sustainable economy for Uguta? We need to generate revenue, and we need to provide jobs to self-sustain our economy, our community. And how do we do this? So I'm trying to look at the alternative to oil now. Of course, there are various alternatives. I have listened to the cultural aspect. I have listened to the tourism aspect, which honestly, they are wonderful opportunities for our community and for Ugutah Meshi. Very interesting opportunities. So I decided to focus on another area, and that is agriculture. So I think that agriculture is one of the best ways we can achieve what we are searching for, what we are seeking. Why? We were original farmers. We're farmers in every ramification. Farmers including fishing. Fishing is also a part of farming. We were very progressive in that activity. Our ecological location is such a great advantage. We have water, good water. We have land. We have intelligent and educated people. And we do have the potential to bond, unite, and carry out whatever we want to achieve. We have the teeming youth for the future. And that is where the issue of employment and unemployment comes. And we do know that in agriculture, you really have a lot of opportunities for young people to become gainfully engaged. With agriculture also, we can go places. And what do I mean? Into the export of produce. There are various, I wouldn't talk about countries, because if you talk about countries, then it's probably the comparative is not relative. But even within countries, you will have that specific locations are engaging in certain agricultural activities that are bringing in a lot of foreign exchange. So we can export produce. I did state at the beginning the area of green energy. I am aware that quite a number of green refineries outside in Europe, I would say, run on palm oil. Simple palm oil. Palm oil was taken for granted in our community many years ago. It's something we could easily have grown and produced. Some of these refineries, I know we are receiving raw materials, palm oil from Nigeria many years ago, and also currently. But other countries overtook the supplies. How did they do this? It's by deliberate plans and actions. And I think that is what we need to do in our own case. Agriculture creates a distribution and processing network that can engage quite a population of people. So I do believe that we need to go back to the basics. Agriculture is also a necessity. You can't go wrong when you go into agriculture. People must eat. It is one of those areas that you can have full control of your activities, full control of your future. And I think that we need to begin to look into this, will I say, original profession that God gave us. So at this point, I just want to summarize the key presentation. And then I will leave it at that for further discussions as we move into the Q&A session. So in summary, future sustainability without oil for Uguta Meshi. We need to diversify. We should be ready to invest in the diversification as a people and as individuals. We need to be in full control of our future and not rely on others, governments, companies, or whatever. At this point, I want to say thank you, and that I will be available to discuss further in the area of diversification and sustainability of the economy, a booming economy for Uguta Meshi. Thank you, Uche.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you, and thank you for keeping it short as well. Very quickly, we're going to just go into the very next presentation. And after that, there's one last one before we have all the conversations. So permit me to just welcome, just 1 minute. Permit me to welcome Emeka. So let me just read his profile. Okay, I'm not sure what's happening. Just give me 1 minute. Okay, please, can you see the profile? Can you see his, all right, Emeka Nwachinemere, through his startup Kitovu Technologies company, is finding a solution to feeding 9.7 billion people by 2050. He is a United Nations STI 2020 winner. Nwachinemere is a graduate of University of Nigeria, Nsukka, where he studied mechanical engineering. He has also received specialized training on business and entrepreneurship from Enterprise Development Center, Pan-African University, Lagos. He has a dream that one day extreme poverty and hunger would be eradicated from Africa and the world. He's a writer, public speaker with interest in governance and advocacy. Please let's welcome Emeka as he discusses food security. Emeka, please can you turn on your screen? Turn on your video.
Thank you, Uche.
Emeka, yours.
Can you see my? Can you see it now?
No, I can't see your video yet. But you also.
Okay. I think any moment from now the video would show because I've turned it on. Okay. I don't know why it's been a bit slow. But thank you very much for this wonderful opportunity to be part of this and engage with this body. I would like to stand on the existing protocols to engage with us on this subject matter and the matter of food security and the place communities have in them. Let me start this way. So several centuries ago or so, our forefathers in Africa discovered agriculture. They discovered how to
have a good population, we have a good clear in this Igbo state. I'm telling you. And this is a population of about 3.
Emeka, please go on. You're muted, please. Unmute. Emeka, unmute yourself. Sorry.
Okay. Is unmuted right now?
Go ahead, yes.
Okay. So I said that several centuries ago, our forebears discovered agriculture and taught the rest of the world how to farm, including how to use irrigation to farm during the times of drought and all that. Back then, output was largely determined by effort and hard work. And the more hard you worked, the more you were able to achieve the kind of results you wanted. But today, that has largely changed. Hard work is not enough to achieve very great yields. And today, we see the application of different kinds of technology in agriculture that is changing the way food is grown in our world today. Today, we see that the resources that enable agriculture to thrive are better managed, better optimized, using technology that allows farmers to anticipate even the needs of the crops with the use of intelligent food systems that allows agriculture to be largely data-driven and allows the connection of the different value chains and ecosystem stakeholders. And more often, we see a demand that what is produced be traceable, and technologies are driving that conversation. We also see that more and more than ever before, crops and livestock are being produced at much more optimal levels. And then it sort of then begs the question, if the rest of the world is preparing for a food future that is food secure? Are we having that conversation? Are we also preparing? But to really understand what we need to do and what it means to have food security, we need to understand what the drivers are. Now, um, for a community or a people to have food security, it's not just talking about the fact that people are growing food or that there is the availability of food that has been produced. There are three food security tripods that talk about availability, that talk about accessibility, that talk about affordability. So the food has to be available in the form that people can make use of it. There has to be correct channels to be able to access the food when it is needed. And the people need to have the purchasing power to buy it. So if the foods are produced at costs that are not sustainable, it means that it will be priced above what people can afford. And in that case, even when the food is available, it means that that community is net food insecure because most people cannot afford it. And if there are distortions in the supply chain, we end up having lots of post-harvest losses because these foods are not getting to the right people who need it when they need them. And that is why we have quite high levels of food post-harvest losses. 40 to 60% every year of food that is produced is lost because there are challenges with the supply chain. And so we can only be a community that is food secure when our people can be able to get the right kind of food through the right channels at cost they can afford. That's when we say that they are food secure. Now, how does this create opportunities? Are there even any opportunities to explore given this? And the answer is yes. If we zero in on Nigeria, we realize that in Nigeria, over 60% of people's incomes are spent on food. And the irony is that Nigeria is a net importer of food. Now, a lot of people might want to look at this as a problem, but it's actually a huge opportunity. It's an opportunity for a people to sit back and position themselves and decide how they are going to play, not just as a community, but a community that is now much more connected to the global food system, because technology has sort of leveled the playing grounds. The world is now very, very flat. So regardless of your location, you can actually key into the global food system. Now, as a world, we have a challenge. We need to be able to feed 9.7 billion people by 2050. And to do that, we must produce 60% more food than we currently do. And this is in the face of climate change and increasing soil degradation. So these are clear opportunities for us as a people to sit back and chart a course for our food future. Now, you might ask me as a person, as an individual, as a community of people, as Uguta people, what are the opportunities for us? Where can we play? How can we position ourselves? And I'll give a few instances. One, but I'll first of all look at the things that set Uguta apart in terms of what constitutes an unfair advantage for us. First, Uguta has over 2,000 kilometers square in terms of land expanse, a lot of which can really be applied for agriculture, not traditional agriculture, but agriculture that highly leverages technology to amplify outcomes. Now, the availability of several water bodies means that agriculture in Uguta and ancillary locations can be all year round if we, apply irrigation infrastructure, but it also means that Oguta can become a hub for the agricultural supply chain. And then another key unfair advantage is the indigenes of Oguta in the diaspora, coming from the point of helping to create access to high value markets for food produced in Oguta and around. That's one area where Oguta indigenes can easily play, as well as also in the area of financing. We also have quite a very, very youthful population. In Nigeria as a whole, the average age is about 24 years. So these are huge opportunities for Oguta. Now, the first place where you can play as a person, as a people, is what I call the Oguta Farm Infrastructure as a Service. Essentially, we are coming together as a community to set up large farms that have supporting infrastructure, including irrigation, storage, mechanization, intelligence from data and technology that allows you to reduce fragmentation and allow the practitioners to use much more modern farm practices. And then, because individually a lot of people cannot afford this, it can create an opportunity for young people to use this facility and pay on the basis of use. But more importantly, it allows us to collect data and then continue to optimize production as it happens. The second one is the Oguta Shared Use Processing Service. Now, with the inland waterway that can easily serve as a means of bringing food produce in neighboring communities and towns, it's easy to set up a shared use processing service that can ensure that whatever is being produced can be processed, reducing post-harvest losses. It will then turn Oguta into a processed food hub. Different people from different locations can come in, process, package, and sell their produce. And then the facility can also help to create access to market for high value markets for them. This will not only create jobs, but it will drive revenue for Oguta as a town. The third one I would like to consider is the Oguta Food Security Fund. Now, you can't drive any investment, you can't drive any development in a place without finance. Finance is like the leveler. Finance is what makes everything tick. Now, as individuals, it may be difficult for one person to do things at a scale that makes it very, very sustainable. But if we come together to set up a fund, it can help drive the kind of development that we want in the agricultural sector. And it can allow different people to syndicate funds that can be channeled to growing the agricultural sector that allows
Emeka, I think that your network is a bit
okay. Now, in summarizing, I would like to say that someone once said that politics is too important to be left to politicians. That's Charles de Gaulle. Now, in my own way, I would like to say that the future of food is too important to be left to a farmer. So it's important that every single one of us should play a role. We should find a way to farm, to fund, to facilitate. But the thing we must not do is be indifferent. Several years ago, we experienced the Biafran War. And one of the things that was used as a tool against us was food. And every day, as a people, we keep saying Osemena, right? But I think that the most important way to say Ozemena is to make sure that Ozo Agareme, and that can only happen when we take actions that actually ensure our food security. And it is on this note that I'll be bringing my presentation to a close, and I'm open for questions when the time for questions come up. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Emeka. Obviously, yes, you're going to be here because we're going to get into that very, very quickly. But not before we have taken the presentation from my sister. I have to apologize for keeping you for this long to present, but I think it's going to be worth it that you're presenting now. So thank you so much for joining. I'm going to be inviting Madam Kechiobi.
Uche, hi, Uche. Can I apologize? Yes. I will not be able to make this presentation. I have to go and look for my daughter.
Oh, dear.
I will not be able to. Yes, that's why I explained to you that I needed to do this quickly. You understand? Please pardon me, but I have to look for my daughter. Yeah.
Thank you. So let's move on to the panel sessions. She already sent in her she already sent in her slides, so I can make those slides available to people that need to see it. But so let's just move on straight to the panel session. And of course, Professor Ifeanyi Uzoka is going to be moderating the panel session. But permit me to introduce the other two people that will join the people that have already spoken to join the session today. So Noel Obiora and Dr. Njideka Kelly. So let me just read their profiles very quickly and we can take it from here. So first and foremost, Noel Obiora is Noel Obiora serves as a senior public utilities counsel for the state of California, advocating for safety and reliability of the state's utility services on behalf of ratepayers. He holds a law degree from the University of Texas and an undergraduate degree in business economics at Southern Connecticut University. He also holds a master's in text and performance studies from King's College London and the Royal Academy for Dramatic Arts. Welcome, Dr. Noel. So the next person I'd like to introduce is Dr. Njideka Kelly, also known as Njideka Ngapa Ibuaka. She's a management consultant, business owner, public speaker, author, columnist, and trainer. She has extensive work experience in fraud investigation and education, teaching, entrepreneurship, and agriculture for over 20 years. Welcome, Dr. Njideka. So, can you both hear me? Njideka and Obi and Noel?
Yes, I can hear you.
I hear you too.
Okay, great. Okay, great. So, two of you are going to be joining the rest of the speakers today to try and deconstruct all the presentations that have been made and try and help us get actionable points. Let's not forget that in due course, His Excellency Right Honorable Gerald Irona is going to make some remarks on this topic. But before then, can I reinvite Professor Ifeanyi Uzoka to moderate this session, this panel session, and then the Q&A sessions. So it's also going to be the opportunity for people to make contributions. The basic thing we need to understand is that during this session, our goal is to deconstruct most of what has been shared and help us get some actionable points going forward from this presentation. So thank you as I reinvite Professor Ifeanyi Uzoka to take on. Prof, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you.
By the way, Prof, before you continue, I have to just come in and say my apologies to everyone. Today, like the first day, is also stretching beyond 2 hours, and I mean, we couldn't just control it. It's been a fantastic presentation so far, but I'd like to crave your indulgence to permit us to move this. I mean, we've already done 20 minutes more. I hope that we can take to round it up by then.
Sorry, can you repeat the last 2 sentences? Your network.
Back to you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. Can you repeat the last 2 sentences? Your network wasn't stable.
Okay, so yes, I'm saying that. I'm begging that everyone should permit us to stretch this by 30 minutes more, right? And let's hope that we will be able to get something out in 30 minutes. Did you hear that? Is
yes,
it fine?
I did. Oh, thank you very much to all our speakers. It's been an interesting day. So we have a lot. The time is short. We have to go straight to the issues. All of us have listened. Barrister Noel Obiora, I'll come to you first. What is the way forward? In 2 minutes, give us your thoughts on how we can, the things that we have heard. Where do we start?
Thank you. I think we start from where Dr. Ernest Nwapa mentioned. When he spoke, he mentioned that this presentation, this reimagining conference, will not be a one-off. And the question then for me becomes, where do we go from here with the ideas that have been presented? I was encouraged to see that all the ideas that were presented have been things that were very core to me. They were very important to me. And there have been ideas that I saw as going to enable Uguta progress. And I'll put them together for you in a short time frame, in a short manner. If you take, starting from previously last week, if you take the presentation of Gerald Ilukwe, where he set up some foundations for where the way forward, and then you come to today, you take the presentation from Chinenye, and then you take the presentation from Felix and from Ms. Callista and Mr. Mwachinemere. You see a string going through it. Take the presentation from, what I took from Gerald was that one of the key foundations, essentially you have to determine where do we go from this presentation so that by the time we're here next year to do an annual reimagining Uguta, we say that we moved the pin forward from what was given us here to the next stage. And I think where we go from here is to say, what are the key takeaways? For me, the key takeaways are the need to develop, begin planning to develop broadband infrastructure at the level that, at the foundational level that Gerald Ilukwe mentioned. And then to the educational element aspect of it, to be able to say, how does that help us build out education? But the other part of it for me is really that we cannot do all these things that have been put in this presentation unless we make them profitable, we make them economically viable. So I think the primary thing we need to be thinking of as Uguta indigenes, and especially because of how spread out and how varied we are, is venture funding. We have to have an Uguta basic basis for venture funding, where we can say, okay, we take this we take these elements that have been presented in this reimagining Uguta. We already have a venture fund. We move towards venture funding, and we begin to fund them as needed. And in that respect, I would say, if we begin to build venture funding capital from indigenes, however much we can do, and then seek outside help, we have to develop it internally first, and then seek outside help to supplement it. So if we begin to do that, then we can go to building 3G to 4G within Uguta. We can go to using that 3G to 4G to attract investment in Uguta, to attract the tourism that everybody mentioned. We can go to using that venture funding to the particular part of Martin Emery's presentation that I felt was tied to this venture funding is Oguta, I believe he called it Oguta Farm Infrastructure as a Service. Because then if you have a pool of funds by the community where you determine to buy the farm equipment that people can lease and rent to go to their various lands, which Uguta communities have a lot of land to use from their various villages. You do that and you say, this is how much it will cost you to use that, and this is what the returns will be. This begins to create profitable, revenue-generated venture basis for moving forward. I think sustainably, one thing we should always ask ourselves is, when we put our foot forward, how would that be paid for? And would that payment be sustainable? Would that investment be sustainable? When we do that, then we begin to add all these various aspects to it. One last thing before, I know I spoke too long, but one last thing I would like to point out is what Dr. Felix mentioned is a low-hanging fruit that we should never forget. Because all the investment that you're doing now, all the plans that you're doing now will materialize into the dream you're seeing 10, 15 years from now. In 10, 15 years from now, the kids who are 15 years old will be in their 25, 30 years old. So we should be looking at those children who are really not going to school, not having a nursery school to go to, not having early childhood education foundations to go to. Because if a society starts to grow and leave these children behind, they become the negative disruptors of that society. So we really need to invest in that early childhood education. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your contribution. Dr. Kelly, I will come to you. Piggybacking on what Barrister Noel has said, how do we start the early, getting these children integrated into our plans for Uguta?
Yeah. Thank you so much, everyone. And thank you, Uche, for putting this together. Reimagining Uguta is something that should have been done a long time ago. So I actually commend you for that. A lot has been said. Actually, a lot of similar stuff have been shared by everyone here. But let me just take it from the angle of the topic, Foundations for a Resilient Economy, right? A community economy. So when we talk about resilience, we're talking about, capacity to recover from a previous hardship, from difficulties. So the question is, what are those hardships that Uguta as a community has faced? And while we're talking about recovery, one of the speakers, no, actually it was you, Dr. Uzoka, who said, if the coming generation cannot do better than us, we have failed. Well, permit me to say that we have failed. We actually have failed this generation and the next generation, because if we reimagine Uguta, we're saying that Uguta previously had glory. I recall that Uguta was the place to go to in Igbo land. People revered Uguta and the people of Uguta, the likes of my late aunt Flora Mwapa, the likes of Chief Udom, the likes of Mrs. Nzimiro, and the rest of them. Uguta was the place to go to. So we really have failed this generation unless we can reimagine it and bring it up to speed to where it's supposed to be. So having said that, I also just want to point out something on this resilience factor. What are those things that made us to regress instead of progress? Let me just say that there are a few points for me here. Lack of economic opportunities is one, because we had that in the past. Dilapidated schools. Uguta schools were the ones that everybody in Imo State and around Nigeria wanted to go to. Priscilla Memorial, Uguta Girls, we lost it, okay? Lack of industry. And then the one that really bothers me is the lack of political recognition. For whatever reason, Uguta has been sidelined by the politicians of Nigeria. And I think it has to do with Uguta people just blindly, I will say, gearing towards one political element, whereas Nigeria has two political systems, and it depends on who's in power. For whatever reason, Uguta has not been able to play politics, if you will, so that we just rely on that one political party that we've followed since our forefathers. And what does that mean? That has really, just put us in the back burner. Where development is concerned, Uguta is forgotten. And that's not right. So in reimagining Uguta and talking about and culminating what everyone has spoken about, the most important element there that they have all touched on is tourism. And in that tourism, we're talking about our culture being brought to light. We're talking about the natural elements that we have already. Look at that lake. Can we really, just take a moment to reflect on what nature has given Uguta that we have not utilized to the best of our ability? Okay, so if we just continue with tourism and the cultural elements of that tourism factor, Uguta will progress. Imagine where the film festivals all are held in Uguta. Can you imagine the employment situation that it will create? Can you imagine transportation where the cab services are going all around Uguta, back and forth from anywhere in Nigeria? Can you imagine travel agents being set up in Uguta, arranging tours like the speaker, I forget her name, Anyam, yeah. One of the speakers, Peace Anyam Osigwe, she said, how do we go about branding Uguta? That's just what we have to do. We have to bring Uguta to the limelight, to the forefront. We need to ensure that people know about Uguta, lands as far as Brazil. And then she talked about the Ohammiri that we have, the Obuide.
Sorry, Dr. Njide, I will cut in a little bit. We need to bring Nkechi Obi back. She was supposed to make a presentation now, but she is back. When she's done with the presentation, we will continue exploring how to make that tourism a reality in Uguta. Thank you very much for your input. Nkechi Obi, please go ahead, take the floor.
Good evening, everyone. So Nkechi Obi is a sports management and administration professional passionately dedicated to the structured development of a vibrant, grassroots-based Nigerian sports industry that adds value to the Nigerian economy, generates employment and creates jobs from the delivery of a broad range of sports goods and services to meet the demand from a youthful Nigerian target market passionate about sports. She holds a PhD in chemistry and an MBA from the University of Lagos. Welcome to Reimagine Uguta, Madam Nkechi Obi.
Thank you very much, Uche. And let me first of all start by apologizing. My daughter went out today with a driver, and I couldn't reach her, and I couldn't reach the driver when it was time to come home. So all that time I was listening to you guys, I was also trying to call that, look, let me even, it's getting dark. These days, one is not, and I have only one child. Before her people come and ask me that, what did I do with their child? I quietly said, please, I can, if I find her, I will come back. So fortunately for us, her phone went dead and the driver was charging his own phone, but he got the phone, and I've now got both of them and they're on their way home. So my apologies. I had to be a mother this time and not a sports professional. Before I did different that's why I ran away when I did. But back to now, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak about what's my work, but essentially it's my passion. If you could share the screen, I'll take us very quickly. What I'm going to try to do is to take us through the business of sport, because what we've been practicing in this country is the participation aspect. And the participation aspect is certainly not going to get us anywhere where we can generate revenue, create jobs, and make, grow our economy and grow our communities through sport. So, Uche, if you could do me a favor by sharing the screen. I cannot see, it's your picture that's showing, like we cannot see the presentation. Or is it me? It's you. Please share your screen so I can continue.
Sorry, just a minute. I think there's a mix-up with your presentation. Let's just get it. You can just go ahead and talk. Just give me 60 seconds.
Okay. Maybe by the time you start sharing, let me essentially say what this would do. What this will do is to give us an overview of the industry, how it operates globally. Then we try to translate it back to Nigeria. And then what we've tried to do over the past 3-4 years from the Nigerian Economic Summit Group, Sports Industries Thematic Group, which I head, we came up with what we call the Sports Industrialization Agenda. And arising from that agenda, we were able to get the federal government to recategorize sports as a business sector of the Nigerian economy. So we've moved from participation, we're now recategorized as a business. And we all know what that means. You get to get all the incentives, you get the tax breaks, you get special status, so you could have special funding. And with special funding, you could have those investments you need. Now, the recategorization also helped us to determine where we actually needed to start from, and everybody was able to see that it was infrastructure and community development, sports in the community, sports that is catering to bottom of pyramid, because that is where the demand for sports goods and services will come from. And if we can supply that demand, we have business. And so after we've looked at infrastructure and community development, then we will look at the business opportunities, and then we will also now see how that relates to a place like Uguta that has this huge body of water. Maybe I start from the end, and then by the time he finishes, shares the screen, you will be able to see. I look at Uguta and I wonder why Uguta is not the home of water sports in Nigeria, the home of all the water sports federations. So you have the rowing, the kayaking, the canoeing, and all. I wonder. One of the best examples to use is a state like Kebbi. Kebbi took beach soccer so seriously, they have become one of the top 5 beach soccer centers in Africa. And the person who started it in Kebbi is now the president of the African Beach Soccer Union because of the work he has done in Kebbi. Kebbi, when they play beach soccer in Kebbi, the audiences are humongous. And right now, they are well poised, regardless of whatever problems they're having, to host a couple of African Beach Soccer Union events in Nigeria. So I look at Oguta Lake there, I wonder why we are not like that. And maybe by the time we finish here today, we would actually see how that, starting from community infrastructure, how we can now build, use sports as a platform for community development. So if Uche is still having problems, I'll just quickly, speak to what I have. So the first thing that we came up with was the fact that the future of this country in general and communities in particular lies in our ability to convert our infrastructure deficit into investment opportunities for development. That's the long and short of it. If we can find a way to take that infrastructure deficit and translate it into investment opportunities for development, we would be well on the way towards the development that we crave for. So if we look at the sports industry, the global value is something in the neighborhood of about $900 billion. Sports is an economic tool. It creates wealth, it generates revenue, and it provides jobs. Everything we're looking for. Those $900 billion is actually divided into 44% of it comes from what we call spectator sports, the professional clubs, the sports teams, event revenue, all this EPL that all of us are missing right now, media rights, sponsorships, and merchandises, while 56% comes from participatory. So all the fitness and recreation, community sports, sporting facilities, local golf clubs, local gyms, local marinas, local docks, personal training, etc. So you can see that the majority of sports investment and sports revenue is derived from common man like me and you who are never going to go to the Olympics, never going to go to the World Cup, never going to go to the Nations Cup, never going to play for any professional club. It is 44% that comes from that aspect. But we need our own 56% for those other 44% to work. So if we take the United States, for example, who have understood how sports works, $83.1 billion by 2024 is what they expect to earn from sponsorship, gate tickets, media rights, and merchandise. The United Kingdom has gross value added of about 41 billion pounds in 2020, and the fitness sector contributed 5.5 billion. So you have 1/8 of the contribution coming from a fitness sector of people who will not go to Olympics. Why I emphasize this is for us to begin to understand that it's not about those clubs. The bulk of the money in sport does not come from those people. The bulk of the money in sport comes from people like me and people like you, right? In Europe, the contribution of sports to GDP is 279 billion euro. And the gross value added is 298. And their sports-related employment is 2.72%. While China is awesome. In the last 20 years, China has gone so far. They were not making any money from sports, like they use sports more for Olympics and for politics. Today, China has outpaced everybody. Their total output is about 295 billion. Their industry growth is calculated at 11.1%, and they've got 4.4 million people employed in sports-related employment. So what were our issues? When we started this whole restructuring program, we looked at what the issues and the challenges. The first one was simply that sports was seen primarily as the responsibility of government. So which is why every day there is fight in the NFF, and there is fight in federations, there is fight in state associations as to these mega budgets that the governments bring. Secondly, they couldn't really, investors couldn't identify the economic opportunities because they looked limited. They were only looking at going to Olympics, going to World Cup, going to Nations Cup. They didn't see the business aspect. Which you can go straight to slide. You can actually go to straight to you can actually go straight. Yeah, this is where I am. So the third was the inability of the private sector to an investment of community to see the value of the business opportunities. And then the last, but by no means the most important, was simply that we did not have data, and there was inadequate capacity to drive investment decisions. So we didn't know how many people were playing. We didn't know how many states. We finally found out how many stadia we have. And believe it or not, we have only 47 stadia, which indicates that we have a stadium to population ratio of 1 to 5 million. Now, what you are told, if you want to call yourself a sports country, a sporting nation, your stadium to population ratio should be 1 to 300,000. South Africa is 1 to 700,000. We are 1 to 5 million. So there is a huge infrastructure deficit that is waiting to be tapped. So how did we go about saying the sector could be unlocked? Three things, three major steps. Government policy for industrialization of sports to create an enabling environment should be changed, should be tweaked. And this includes getting a national sports industry policy, which indicates government statement of intent about this sector, and being included in the National Development Plan 2021 to 2030 and the Nigeria Agenda 2050. I'm glad to say that's well on the way. Then we needed a business-focused strategy to reduce government involvement and unlock investment targeted at once we got the president to recategorize sports as a business, all the incentives that will be opened up, who's going to take advantage? Thirdly, and most importantly, we needed to create demand for sports goods and services. So mass participation policies through the education sector, the healthcare sector, and the lifestyle sector to drive this demand. I was very happy to hear Chineye say we should begin to build scientific hubs, IT hubs and what have you, because that's the very first place that things like this, everybody requires leisure facilities, especially those in this IT sector. Go and check California. Silicon Valley came out of University of Southern California, and the University of Southern California has a fantastic sporting program built around basketball, built around baseball, and built around American football. So what is this, our industrialization agenda? The first step is that you reform, you restructure and reposition the sports industry. And the next step is that after that reform and restructure, you harness the economic and social potentials for sports. And below that, you will see for the reform and restructure and repositioning, we expected the government to do that through the National Sports Industry Policy. That's the 1I and 1P. So we have incentives and we have the policy. The agenda is called the 3Is and 1P agenda. So 1I came from the incentives from government. The P came from the government. This is the policy. While the private sector was now to get the investment and put it into infrastructure for us to now get a viable sports industry. Now, next slide, Uche. Please, could you go to the next slide? Because I'm sure most people can read from this. So we have taken sports from solely recreation to business. And the reason we can do this is simply because sports has a diverse value chain. We mentioned tourism earlier. I was listening to Peace. She talked about tourism. And sports really is one of the biggest promoters of tourism. Sports tourism is huge. We have growth enhancing specialization. So the products and services you can find here are in niche sectors. Then you also have strong private sector contribution most of what happens in sports comes from the private sector and employment and job creation. And the impact of this is simply that we're eligible for incentives now, that we can develop metrics for impact measurement, and we can be considered for special funding and tax rebates and what have you. So sports will now be viewed on the basis of number of transactions within the sector. And the major highlights of this is that we now have PPP opportunities, and I'm in the next slide anyway. So these PPP opportunities, investment incentives, and increased funding options. Now, why? So next slide. Why? How does that impact in the community? Most major cities in Europe and America are built around sports stadiums. The first thing they build is the stadium or the community sports center. America opened up when they were saying, go east, young man, you go west, young man. They opened up under 3 principles. It was about body, mind, and soul. So mind was education, soul was church, and body was sports, which is why when cities developed, one of the first things they developed was where they could recreate. And so every major American town has one major sports facility where people gather. So for community development, we are saying in the sports sector that the stadium is the heart. Whether you call it stadium, whether you call it training facility, whether you call it community center, what it is that the key to community development through sports is investment in sports infrastructure in form of mixed-use sports complexes, sports industrial parks, and community-based centers. So why are we saying this? Sports infrastructure, if we start, this is the cycle, the chain. So if you start from community-based facilities, they will trigger the development of large facilities because you want somewhere to go and watch your professional clubs. And then when you trigger that, you have visitors who come. Sports stadiums are no longer about what goes on in that grass. They are more about the entertainment aspect of sport. So you come to watch, but you eat, you watch a film, you shop, you do everything. And then from the influx of visitors, you get your entertainment centers. People will build offices. When they do that, you need houses. And when you build houses, you will need sports centers for people to live. So sports infrastructure and community development, here are the returns for investors. You have returns, you have urban regeneration, you have tourism, you have job creation, you have taxes, and you have social identity. Now, when all of that is said and done, the numbers, I'm on the next slide anyway, Uche. The numbers for us in Nigeria is that over the next 10 years, every year, $500 million annual investment is expected to come in to deliver over 3 trillion in annual revenue. Uguta should start thinking, how do we get some part of that $500 million? Sports will drive the largest real estate and infrastructure development in the country since independence, because when you put the stadium as the center of community development, your towns, your new towns will develop around sporting facilities. Your manufacturing hubs will develop around sporting facilities. And beyond infrastructure, you have other things in the sports value chain that you can put your money in. So a minimum investment of 300 million annually into stadiums and facilities. An annual investment of about $100 million is the sports goods manufacturing. An annual investment into events and content of about $50 million. And so that gives us a total of $500 million between 2021 and 2030 to deliver 1.5 to 3% of GDP. The revenue yield is on the other side. All of this has been worked out. So the future of this country, and when we think that this country is made up of communities like Uguta, is our ability to convert that deficit into investment and that we will drive the largest real estate and infrastructure development in the future. So how that affects Uguta is how Uguta positions itself to own water, for me, own the water sports space and attract some of this investment into developing Uguta as the foremost water sports center in Nigeria. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much. The message was clear. Own the water sports and attract part of this investment inflow that is going to come into Nigeria. Thank you so much. I'm going to return back to Professor Ifeanyi Uzoka and to take questions and open up the floor as well. Thank you, Prof.
Thank you very much. Uche and Nkechi, we are so grateful talking to us again about sports, opening our eyes to the possibilities with the lake that we have. We have been hearing it, tourism. Now, there are what opportunities in Uguta in terms of tourism. Now, I would like to bring in George Uzonwanne to just in 1 minute tell us the opportunities we have with medical tourism in Uguta. The Uguta Medical Hospital that is lying like that, fallow, how can we turn it into a medical tourism center? Nigerians travel abroad. They spend billions of dollars. But we have something near Uguta. And besides this, that place, that hospital is at the center of Uguta because it was built on the blood of Uguta people. Ndenda Miburu, 1972, they burnt out Uguta because they didn't get enough Gary, and that was how Uguta was burnt. People died, properties were lost, and that hospital was part of our compensation. Dr. George Uzonwanne, please, how do we bring this, use this hospital to turn it into a medical tourism center for Uguta, and and make sure that the suffering of our people in that episode in 1972, that we don't forget it. George Uzonwanne, please go ahead.
Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon, everybody, or good evening, depending on where you are. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to everybody. It's been great today listening to the presenters and panelists. Medical tourism. One thing I can say is that tourism again remains the common word that everybody's saying. Tourism. So tourism in one form or the other. Sports tourism, tourism generally, tourism as a business, and now Professor Uzoka has talked about medical tourism. Well, medical tourism is a specialized type of tourism. I'll talk about the challenges first. And I like talking about the challenges because once you recognize challenges and can deal with them, then it's easier to do the rest. Having Uguta as a medical tourism hub is actually not too difficult to do. And when I say that, it's a matter of us picking what areas of our medical tourism we want to go into and what market we're looking at. For the Uguta community, we could look at areas that our initial market could be just the areas in the southeast of Nigeria. And then we scale up from there once we gain some traction. Medical tourism is not something that demands very high levels of financial investment at the beginning in certain fields, but definitely in other fields like cancer treatment, you will need a lot of investment there. But if you look at a field like ophthalmology, where basically you need a very clean room, a clean theater, and the operating microscope, and then the skills of the ophthalmologist, Uguta already has professionals who are ophthalmologists and who are on top of their game, right? If we actually lease a part of the teaching hospital, of the general hospital in Uguta, and decide to start with ophthalmology as a subspecialty, or even if we use the Sacred Heart Hospital and develop one room into a world-class theater. One thing about medical tourism is that the reputation and quality of the services is what sells it, right? And we already have the manpower for that. We have some top ophthalmologists who are members of this forum and who are around the area and who are really the competitors. The centers around the East do not have the real competitors in terms of ophthalmological care to really upset Uguta as a center for ophthalmology. Another area is something like orthopedic surgery. We have people like Dr. Emdin who are well renowned in hip replacement surgery and hip replacement surgery. And these are things that people pay so much money to fly to India. COVID has been with us and will likely be with us, even with the vaccines, at least for the next 2 to 4 years in my own assessment. So whether we like it or not, there will be people who will not be able to travel overseas to get that. That opens a business opportunity. We can do orthopedic tourism, the specialty of orthopedic surgery as one of the niche areas where we can do tourism. But Dr. Njide mentioned something about political, how Uguta has not been politically very engaged. We can see what we have lost just because of the political decisions that happened in Nigeria concerning Imo State. All the development we had within 7 months of the former people being in government, we seem to have lost. How do we actually get ourselves aligned with whoever is in power, irrespective of the party, so that it's the value that we bring as a community that matters? This hospital belongs to the Imo State government. Are you sure that if we go there to talk with them, they will listen to us? So these are things that we need to be more engaged politically as well. I'm bringing that up as one of the potential hurdles because we do not have a private hospital to use, but we can actually engage the government to use a part of that hospital. The initial setup costs I do not expect to be so high, and then we build up on that. But medical tourism definitely gives, Uguta stands in a very good location to have medical tourism as one of the types of tourism. There is already a hospital. The environment is very serene. You have, the pollution is not as much as in the rest of the country. So it's a good place for people to recover. And you actually have homes. People can put their homes on Airbnb, especially the people who are in the diaspora, who have very decent homes. And it's a win-win for everybody, where your homes can be used and they are safe. And at the same time, people benefit from it. So somebody put in the forum that it's not a matter of what we can bite, but what we can chew. Although for me, it's the other way around. It's what we should be able to chew that we should bite in the first place. I think we have so many opportunities and we should just pick one and start.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So that is an area of tourism we can key into. I would talk about education, but before then, I will bring in our deputy governor, former deputy governor. He has been listening. We need to hear his thoughts in about 2 minutes. Your Excellency, you're welcome. All right, he's not ready yet. Professor Faith Uzoka, I will come to you. There was the presentation we had. We learned about the possibilities with education.
Hello?
Oh, you are back. All right, I'll come.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, but I can't see
Thank
you.
you, Prof. Thank you, Prof. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, but we can't see your face.
Can you see me now?
Not yet, but go ahead. In 2 minutes, give us your thoughts on what have gone so far. What we can.
Okay, Prof. Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to join in today's episode of Reimagining Uguta. The topic for today is Foundation for a Resilient Community Economy. I'll speak from practical point of view. And my discussion shall be on agriculture. I quite listen briefly to what our sister Mrs. Calista Zog said. Over-reliant agriculture, where has it taken? I must have to look, and my speech will dwell practically on agriculture and using Uguta potentials to enhance our economy. We are aware that those days we had J.B. Olivant, John Holt, USC, all of them doing flourishing business in agriculture, palm oil and palm kernel to be precise. And you recall that in Uguta we have vast farmland where we have naturally occurring palm trees, and that have yielded a lot of revenues to families, villages in the community, in Uguta community. I will just use 3 villages as a case point: Abatu village, Omonku village, and Omayata village. These 3 villages net averagely between 3 to 5 million naira annually as proceeds from palm produce. These palm produce are sold wholly to people that process it from Mbano, Isu, Ekwe, and Wangele people. Now, the species of palm trees there, is the wild species of palm tree. These days, we have an improved supreme high yield introgress hybrid oil palm from Malaysia and Costa Rica. These hybrid palm trees can produce within 16 to 18 months. From literature and from practical, I'm talking from practical experience as a farmer, 36 months old, 1 hectare of hybrid supreme yield introgress oil palm can generate 25 metric tons of palm annually. Now, how much does it cost to plant 1 hectare? Now, the families I've mentioned, or the villages I've mentioned, the 3 villages that garage between 3 to 5 million naira annually. If they could save 2 million annually, they will be able to plant 1,538 stands of this hybrid species of palm tree. And this 1,538 will be accommodated in 10 hectares. And within 36 months, it will yield, like as I said, a hectare of that palm tree will yield 25 metric tons. So if you plant 10 hectares, you'll be having 250 metric tons of palm annually. And with the current rate of oil, if you process the oil, you'll be having 62.5 tons of oil annually from 10 hectares of palm plantation. And with the cost of 550,000 naira per ton of palm oil, it means that with 2 million invested by each of these villages, under 3 years, they will be realizing 34,375,000 naira annually. So I'm talking from a practical point of investment and how we can improve the economy of Uguta.
Your Excellency, you are muted. Can you unmute? Could you unmute your mic?
I'm aware in the history of Uguta, Uguta have never completed any project communally. There is no single project executed and completed by Uguta communally. So my take on this is that we should be able to look inwards and look at those potentials, those areas where we have a very serious comparative advantage, and encourage the locals to be able to maximize those potentials without levying them, without asking anybody to contribute, because anything you do in Uguta and ask anybody to contribute money, it must be a failed project. 2 or 3 people will contribute, others will not contribute. So I have used these 3 villages of Umayata, Omonko, and Abato that have farmland. Now, there are other villages, other families that have these potentials. All we need to do is to encourage them to replace these wild palms with the improved palms, and this will improve the economy of Uguta. In next 5-10 years, Uguta will be the hub of palm business. Secondly, the next point I want to make is that there are areas we feel or we believe that we cannot delve into. From studies and research, I found out that Uguta had a very high comparative advantage in soybean production. Currently, I have 4 hectares of soybean plantation. And I can tell you that this had exposed me to a whole lot of areas which we need to unbundle. Issue of planting something like carrot, cucumber. These are areas that our youth can be engaged. It takes little capital. So our discussion must be tailored to a homemade issues and solutions. And if we are able to take some of these things, it only entails talking to the people involved. Nobody is contributing money. It's only trying to reintegrate their economy, and this will open up Uguta and make Uguta a very resourceful and a vibrant economy. By so doing, we'll be laying a very sustainable foundation for agriculture and improving the economy of Uguta as a whole. Thank you very much for
Thank you
yielding.
very much. Thank you very much. Agriculture is very important, not just producing the food. Like our presenter Wachinere mentioned, we need to add value to what we produce. It doesn't make sense producing the palm fruit and selling it like that. We can process it. It's going to create employment. It's going to bring in more money. We can even export. We will go back to the issue of agriculture and how we can get this going. But before then, let's quickly look at the issue of education. Professor Faith Ozok, I'm coming to you. Chinenye Uzuku mentions the potential contribution of education in Uguta, International Secondary School University. Now, when we look at it, it seems very expensive, but given the fact that technology has breached the gap in education, how possible is it for us to establish internationally renowned schools in Uguta? If we are going education, something like a school of business and technology that are not very capital intensive. Please, in 1 minute, I'm watching the time. Go ahead, Professor Uzoka.
Oh, thank you so much, my brother, Professor Uzoka. Technology has made things very simple, and COVID has also exposed us to the possibilities, the unlimited possibilities that technology presents. Uguta does not need very huge buildings in order to create an internationally renowned school. What they need is the ability to collaborate. We just need a structure and the technological facilities. And today, it would be nice for us to talk about this broadband thing and have some landing on it, because it is the basis of all that we're talking about in terms of technology and communication. So if you have broadband, then we can collaborate with institutions abroad. I know of a lot of friends who are working on creating some international collaboration so that people in Nigeria will take international exams and have international certifications in various aspects of human endeavor. They can actually take the high school exam, the Canadian, the American high school exam, and from all other parts of the world in Nigeria. And all we need is just small centers. Small centers. Currently, we are working with some people from India to set up educational institutions in India. And these educational institutions in India will be based off of our own colleges here. And all they need is one small building. And we'll be receiving about 400 students annually from India who will receive our certificates, but they have not visited Canada any day. And these people will be well trained and have an ability to contribute to their own economy. So it's all about broadband, it's all about technology, it's all about collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dr. Felix Okosha, there is something that is key to what we are discussing. Everything we are talking about is investment. Do we have an enabling environment for individual investments in Uguta? If we don't, what can we do to have to set up an enabling environment in Uguta that will attract Uguta people and others to come to put their money behind most of these projects we are talking about? Please, in 1.5 minutes. Then, Jerry, I will come to you. Dr. Felix? All right. Jerry, you have a question. Go ahead and ask a question, your question. Yes, unmute your mic, please. Go ahead. Just ask your question so that we can answer. We are running out of time. All right. While we are waiting for him, I'm going to call on Mrs. Calista Zogo again to come back. She talked about the agriculture, the growing our people and our economy. It would be nice to hear from her on how the practical steps we can use to get our youths and our people back into agriculture in Uguta. What, as she said, our God's given blessing. Calista, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Professor Uzoka. If I get you well, you are asking for how we can get our teeming youth back to agriculture.
Yes.
I think first and foremost, I would like to say that it's not just the youth, everybody. I remember about, I would say about 4 years ago, there was this food and agricultural organization program. I think every few years they have a food kind of show, and they select a country where that display will be made to sensitize the world about the importance of food. And I remember the one that was held in Italy was about 4 or so years ago, and I happened to have attended a day's tour on that. The importance of food cannot be overemphasized, and you can't go wrong with it. We can become the producer of maybe Eastern Nigeria, extend it to, of course, export products and stuff. We become a hub for where people can come and get, even if it's just their fruits, vegetables, and some other maybe arable products. So the point is that some of the presentations have also highlighted the mechanized nature of agriculture now, the digital nature of agriculture. The deputy governor also gave some practical examples of modified seedlings and all of that. So agriculture is no longer a business that you could say is unattractive when you look at it in that sense, in the modern sense. It's no longer unattractive. It's probably as good as any white-collar job, the way it is being practiced in a mechanized form. So I believe that most of our people, you need sensitization. Sensitization, and then once they see what is in need for them, the potentials, that you can actually become as rich as you want. You can become richer than somebody who is in any other industry in your agricultural, will I say, activities or profession. I don't think it will be very, I don't see it as a challenge. I think it will be very, very, it will be easy to get people into farming. Like we said, the most important thing is you sensitize them. And once they see the economy in it, it becomes easy. And then, of course, you have to put in place the kind of, will I say, I'll call it pre-activity logistics. And some of those are some of the things we've discussed. What kind of funding mechanism? Could it be cooperatives or stuff? What kind of implements do they need? Some of the presentations spoke about shared facilities. Okay, so all of that discussion, when put together, and then you look at the benefits that have been enumerated at today's presentation, particularly the practical aspects, the economic aspects that the deputy governor has also put forward as a farmer himself, you begin to see how profitable it is. For any young person, what attracts them is maybe the profit, the reward. How do I generate revenue? How do I make it? The expression is always make it. Have you arrived? How do I arrive? Have I arrived? Okay, so our young people, those are the expressions. So once they see what is in it, I think that we really have a gold mine in bringing our people, not just the young people, but all of us back to the basics, and that is agriculture. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. Dr. Okosha is here. Please, in 1 minute, creating the enabling environment for investments into making Uguta a resilient economy. All that we have discussed so far. Dr. Felix.
Yeah, so again, thanks very much. I think it all starts with a foundation, and the foundation includes most of the things that we heard from everyone, starting from the first day that Dr. Ernest Nwapara talked about our history, and the Deputy Governor talked about the institutions. And then the most basic one, the most critical one is around the people, and especially the children of today who will be the future leaders of tomorrow. And if you look at the pillars that I presented, those pillars are the anchors. I believe that we as a group, we should start thinking about how to begin to converge and create something that makes a good framework for us to begin to start. So I think it all starts with resilience and then a good foundation.
Thank you very much. Resilience and a good foundation. Somebody has raised his hand before, but the person has left. Our time is running out.
Jerry is here. Jerry is here.
All right, Jerry
is here. So
go
Jerry
ahead.
can
I couldn't see him. All right.
please go on. Just go on. Prof, go on. Prof, go on.
All right. Thank you very much. So we have talked about agriculture, sensitizing the people, getting back.
Your hand is blocking everything.
All right. We have talked about the possibilities in education. And we were talking to Njideka Kelly before. Please, in 1 minute, can you round up your thoughts? I had to rudely cut you off that time to bring Nkechiobi in. If you can round up your thoughts in 1 minute, that would be very appreciated so that we can move forward. Dr. Njideka, go ahead.
Well, I don't know how I can round up in 1 minute if you took most of my time, but I'll try. It won't be 1 minute though, I promise you that. I just want to say to everyone that has spoken, the theme is essentially the same. It's all about what we have to do as a people to bring Uguta back to where it is supposed to be. His Excellency spoke on agriculture, and Emeka Nwachine-Emere also spoke on agriculture, and Kalista. I want to say that I like what Emeka Nwachine-Emere had said about the drivers of food security, because that's really where we need to begin. It's not just farming for farming's sake. It's actually about making food security available, making it affordable, and making it accessible. Now, His Excellency talked about the palm tree, going from the wild palm trees that we find in existence to the hybrid, which will ensure that we venture into manufacturing. Because we can say all we want, if we don't put money where our mouth is, we are not going to succeed. So what is it going to take? It's going to take the people of Uguta. It's going to take courage, like Dr. Felix Oporta had talked about. He talked about trust, and he talked about lack of energy. And I can assure you that the platforms have already been built in Uguta. This platform here, Loop, is one platform that can begin to help us achieve these things. However, there's a lack of trust amongst Uguta people, and there's also a lack of courage in getting things done. So I just want to implore the organizers of Loop and all Uguta people to get into, just making sure that the things that we want to do to bring Uguta up are sustainable. How can they be sustainable if there is division? If there's division amongst the people? If in the Loop sector, people just talk and yak and do all kinds of stuff without actually putting their energy, their expertise, and their money into where it needs to go. So thank you very much. There is so much that I would like to say, but I know time is of the essence. Uche and Nietzsche, what I'll do is to send you my paper, and perhaps you could incorporate it into you know, whatever you need to achieve with this. But Uguta has potential. Tourism, we need to start there. Agriculture, education, health sector, and of course, let's not forget security. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Tourism, tourism, tourism. We will get there. So we have talked about medical tourism, educational tourism. I wanted an insight on a resource we have in Ugutah that is wasting away. The Ugutah golf course. You know, it's of interest to me for two reasons. That golf course is all, the golf course and the motel are part of the compensation that was paid to Ugutah for the heinous actions of the 158 Battalion at the market. That golf course is rotten. Somebody that I knew who was an army officer, he was a brigade commander, he told me that he used to come to Ugutah golf course to play golf in the morning, go back to Owerri, and then dress up and go to Obinze, to his office. How can we resuscitate this golf course? We are talking about tourism and we have something in our hands. David Mark, like I said, he used it as Nitel Nigerian Open. How do we bring it back? How do we bring back the water sports in Ugutah? There was also, please open, I thought Obuagwenes to be here because he's an avid golf player, to give us an insight. How do we bring this, not just bringing it back into function, but internationalizing it so that it will draw people to Ugutah and create jobs and employment in Ugutah? Anybody in the audience, since Obuagwe is not here? Ugutah golf course. Bennett, how do we go about it?
Okay,
All right.
Doc.
Yes, go ahead. We cannot hear you in Kechiobi.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
my
I
mic
can
is
hear you
on.
now. I can hear
Yeah.
you now.
Oh, okay. So I say one of the biggest mistakes we make is to one of the biggest mistakes we make is, sorry, they're asking me to start my video. I don't at this time, no, is to think that these things can happen in isolation. So when I spoke about water sport, the audience for water sport, the consumers for water sport are the same class of people that also play golf. The audience for water sport are the high net worth individuals. So if you can tie both of them into one ecosystem, they would come for the water sport and they will play golf. What we've not been able to do for golf in this country is to ensure that we can drive tourism by creating events. We do not have a golf circuit in this country. Everybody is playing golf because they're big men. It's one of the reasons I don't play the game, because I think not enough has been done with it. We have all the richest people playing golf, and yet they've not been able to turn it into a circuit. They've not been able to create business around it. So the only way you create business around it is to make a golf circuit. There are hundreds of competitions in this place, but they've never been able to elevate them. into a circuit. Yesterday, I watched basketball players play each other to raise money for historically Black colleges and universities in America. And they raised, I think at the last count when I went to bed, it was something in the order about $6 or $7 million, one day tournament. But there are so many tournaments. So golf thrives on tournaments. If you and water sport thrives on tournaments. If you can tie the two of them together, you get the same category class of consumer. And then you have started. You will now have to build the hotels to take care of them. You would have to create the tourist attractions to take care of them. You would have to create the shopping experience. If you don't mind, give me 30 seconds. I will explain how that worked for Valencia. So we begin to learn. It's not rocket science. Valencia had a rundown marina at one time, but they bidded to host the international Louis Vuitton Cup and the America's Cup. And when they won the bid, it enabled them to regenerate their marina. When they hosted that tournament, they had all the rich, because water sport is for rich people. So all the Louis Vuitton, all the Fendi, all the this, all the that showed up in town. And today, that marina keeps hosting annual events. We haven't understood that. So I would like to see an Uguta attract the investment to first turn Uguta into the water sport home for all water sports in Nigeria. So the water sport federations should have their home in Oguta. So they can bring their tournaments to Oguta. So when they bring their tournaments, the money follows them. And when the money follows them, then they'll start putting up the hotels and all. They will play golf. So you now organize a major, even if it is a friend, even if it is that is Tiger Woods, you say, come and give a master class. But just do something that brings the audience so they see what else you have and then they can stay. That's, it requires that level of thinking, that level of effort.
Thank you very much.
They are doing it in Kebbi. Kebbi is now the #1 place to go to for beach soccer.
Thank you
Who
very
would have
much.
imagined?
Thank you very much. You have inspired us with your speech back to what we do best: planning. Planning, planning, planning is the bedrock of Uguta. You've been to Uguta, you see how beautiful Uguta is, how the layout is. It started in the 30s. Our grandparents, they planned it, and we inherited it from them. We are going to plan for a better Uguta going forward. We have heard all the presentations: tourism, tourism, tourism. We can make Uguta a tourist attractive place. Medical tourism is there. Educational tourism is there. We can water sports, the golf course. What's the name? We can build water parks in Uguta where parents will be relaxed that their children will not drown. We have it in Uguta, it will attract people. Education has made us. We cannot do without education. It's possible, as we have seen, to set up international schools in Uguta. Just 1,500 students will transform Uguta economy into a $1 billion economy. And all these things, we are able to do them because we have done similar things before. So we are not in a place where we want to be, but we can get there. It's a matter of time. All we need to do is come together, what we have discussed, put them into action, detailed planning like our foreparents did. And in the next 5 years, we will be having a different discussion from what we are saying. So to all the panelists and the presenters, thank you very much. Uche, I'm handing over to you. I thank everybody for attending. Uche, over to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Prof. Thank you to everyone that has spoken. His Excellency, thank you.
Dr. Much, I can't call you all by name at once. I just like to say that for everything that we've said here, the major thing to take it. I just like to say that.
Uche, we can't hear you.
Hold there. Can you hear me now? Is it better? Is it better? Can you hear me now?
It's better. I can hear you.
Okay, great. So I want to say that most of the things we've talked about here are things that people, individuals, can actually band together to do. We don't, I think that in doing the report that will follow this session, it might be necessary to have additional conversations that are very narrow to each of the things that we have identified that are very important. But one of the things we should go back considering, we should go back and start thinking about is how do we make Uguta, how do we make it possible for people to be able to group together to do most of those things, because it's not going to be community effort at the end of the day. And I do not think that is a government thing, like somebody is already suggesting in the group that government should do. These are economic things that individuals can do. Hopefully we can find a way to be able to build consensus around people who take the initiative. It will require people taking initiative to do this thing, and not necessarily government. And like His Excellency will always say, if you want everybody to join to do this together, then we probably will not be able to achieve it. It will require people who are very invested and passionate about each of these areas. But one thing I take away from here is that we need to create a brand for Uguta. We need to create a brand, and we need to drive Uguta as a tourism destination, and then other things can be built around it. That's one thing I take away from this session. I'd like to thank everybody who has come and who has stayed till this time. We're supposed to end in 2 hours. We're almost ending at 4 hours mark. It will only have happened because of how engaging the conversation has been. And truthfully, these sessions are not things that you can have in 2 hours session. But I know that we have tomorrow again. Tomorrow we'll discuss how to engage our youth. We talk about security. We'll talk about insecurity, but I think that insecurity is a component of unengaged youth. So how do we deal with those issues? So if you can come tomorrow, a lot of the conversations we've had today I will actually boil over to tomorrow, and then after tomorrow we can have we can decide whether we want to meet again to consider the report that will come out of this or not. But please, let's join tomorrow by 4 p.m. again. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Uche. Thanks a lot. Thank you to all.
Thank you. And good night.
Thank you, Professor Uzoka Uboru.
Bye.